Hello and welcome to RPG Research and our Saturday Game Master Training and Workshop sessions here Saturdays 9 a.m. to noon Pacific Time on twitch.tv/RPG Research. You can learn more about the 501c3 nonprofit charitable organization, research and human services that we do at rpgresearch.com. And if you're not a donor yet, please do consider swing on over to the website and click on donate. Or if you want to be a Patreon supporter and get early access to our content a month or more before the general public, our essays, our videos, etc., swing by patreon.com/RPG Research and go ahead and pick a support level there. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. We have joining us remotely today, Dan in Brazil. Good morning, good afternoon or evening, Dan?
Good afternoon.
Afternoon. All right, good. And Danielle over in Cheney, Washington. Good morning.
Good morning.
And we may have some others trickling in as the morning progresses here in the Pacific time zone. We will see. I'm surprised Dan and a few others aren't here today. But Spokane Dan, but we'll see if any others pop in. And Danielle, I understand you have to leave around 10:30 because you've got prior commitments you have to get to. So let's go ahead and start with checking in on how each of your voicing assignments is coming along. And then Danielle, we're going to talk a little bit about where, well, both of you, whoever shows up, we'll talk about your progression towards your diploma of Game Master Level 1 Trainee, because Danielle, reached a milestone yesterday in part of the sign-off process. Yay! So let's start first. Usually, like to start with the most remote person first, and then kind of work in locally. So we'll start with Dan in Brazil. Plus, it's less early for you, so hopefully your voice is a little more warmed up than ours. So how has it been going with your voicing assignment practice and preparation?
Due to my relative isolation, I've had little opportunity to actually find examples of the Western voice, and among others, core difficulties in my voicing, which are generally based around not knowing different accents, Germanic accents, or, the cowboy accent. But
sure.
Generally, I'm somewhat satisfied with my voicing work, though I do admit that I have a bit of a safe spot.
Mm-hmm. We all do.
I think I do have a modest range for starting.
Okay.
When it comes to GM training, my way that I perceive my progress is that I just need more practice. I need to actually DM something that you can actually analyze. And so one of the greater milestones that I am preparing for are for the potential session in February, where I'll DM the Lost Minds of Fendel, which is a 5e D&D.
Basics.
5e D&D core set. Basically.
Right. Yeah, the basic starter set intro. Correct. And to get analysis from us, you have two ways of doing it. One is you can remotely GM us on one of the applied gaming days, which would be, late for you on a Monday or Thursday, or you could do it on a Saturday. Saturday is also, because it's Game Master Training, a day that you can run something, and the rest of us will play. So that's one way to do it. There's pros and cons to that. The pro is you get immediate feedback as you're progressing. You're in the safety bubble of us, being a supportive environment, etc. You don't have to worry about disappointing us. However you run things, we're going to give you helpful feedback so that you can grow. The disadvantage is, with it being remote, it's harder to follow faces and body language and those important things. And then, we get the technical issues that get in the way sometimes. It tends to interfere with flow state, etc. So that's kind of the trade-off of that. The other option is that you get a group together yourself that, where you are locally, and you record the session and then upload that internally to our intranet, where we can then go through the video at our leisure and give feedback that way. So that's kind of the two different ways we address training remote trainees. Do you have a preference?
I have mostly a preference for doing it remote with you due to your experience and the possibility of immediate feedback.
Mm-hmm.
I'm aware of the difficulties caused by the lack of direct interaction, but if I record, the problem with recording local sessions are that, well, the players that I DM for tend to be very timid, and I think that it would affect their behavior if I recorded it. I'm not sure if I would get permission. I might try.
Yeah.
The other one is that I GM in Brazilian Portuguese, so it might be difficult to follow.
That would be a problem, yes. That would be a problem. Right, and yeah, it has to be a group where everybody gives written permission to have a recording. We won't make it public. It'll only be within, limited intranet access, but still, a lot of people have issues. Now, I when I've done my experiments and run a lot of my groups, short of our community settings, I generally get people, out of hundreds of people, I've had a handful who said they're uncomfortable, but I only had one leave a game over it, and he did it after the second or third session, saying he just couldn't deal with seeing the camera with the light on and knowing that he's being recorded, even though he knew it was private. It just bugged him too much. But that was out of hundreds and hundreds of, maybe thousands. Boy, if you think about how long I've been recording sessions now, at least 15 years I've made it a regular practice. I can think of only one person who left the game because of the recording. But it did make a handful of others uncomfortable. They usually ended up starting to forget about it and such and got over it. But it can be difficult. And I used random things like Meetup and such. I met people I had never met before. But you're not in the training process. You don't want to do that. You want to start with people that you know will be kinder to you than a bunch of strangers who might not be so kind if you're still learning. So yeah, we're happy to do it over remote. And I would suggest, so that it's not 2 a.m. for you on Mondays and Thursdays, that we plan a Saturday that you're going to GM, and that we make sure we have enough other GMs here on Saturday to be a player, for you. So I would be a player, and then whoever else. You want at least 4 players, 3 or 4 players, to be able to do that. 3 or 4 players is just about the right amount, especially doing it remotely. We don't want any more than 5 players. If we start pushing 6, it's going to be way too slow. But as long as we get about 3 players to 4 players on a Saturday, I think that's the best day to do it for you. What do you think?
Yeah, that's my preference as well. Any Saturday would do.
Right. So we should. So have you started? Do you have a hold of the box set yet in your hands, or the PDF?
Not in my hands directly, but I do have it back home, and I'm going back home next week, so
Okay.
I'll be able to take a look at it.
Okay.
Not be able to GM next Saturday, but probably the Saturday after that.
Okay, we want to make sure you have enough time to prepare, because you do want to pre-read it and such. So, okay, so 26nd. So maybe, how does February the 9th then? That's a few weeks out. That's 3 weeks out. Would February the 9th give you enough time to be comfortable?
Let me just see if I don't have anything scheduled.
Okay.
Probably not have, but just to double check.
Yep.
And unfortunately, we know the module really well.
What's that, Danielle? I can barely hear you. Your audio is really quiet.
Sorry, I said, and unfortunately, we know this module really well at this point.
Well, that's fine for him. We can do suspension disbelief just fine and play along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And who's to say we won't play it completely differently like we did with Jen? Oh, you weren't there when we played it with Jen, were you?
Nope.
Other than the opening combat scene, the whole rest of the adventure was non-combat, pretty much.
Well, even like into the mine, or not the mine, but the thing for the goblets are.
Yep. We persuaded the goblins and all of this stuff. So you have to see it. It's pretty funny. It's on YouTube. It is public.
Okay, it is public.
And it was and it's with Game Master Jen, Jen. So yeah, it was she had never played with. We were. It was a very different version of the Lost Mine of Phandelver. By the way, it's mine singular, not plural. We've all been making that mistake. It's a very common mistake. It's the Lost Mine of Phandelver, not mines. I'm as guilty as anybody. I read an article recently that reminded me of that. I went, oh yeah, I guess it is. Oh my, sorry. But it's a very common mistake. Lots of people do it. So, and really, as I think about it, I grew up working in a mine summers, and it was called the Lost Packer, but it was the Lost Packer Mine, not the Lost Packer Mines. And it had about 10 levels. What?
At first, when I picked it up, I thought it was like going to have multiple mines.
Right, but it's an introductory one, so that makes sense that it wouldn't be that involved. I spent a lot of summers working underground and such, and the real pinnacle period was when I was about 16 or 17. I talked the miners into trying out role-playing gaming for the summer, and so we played MERP, Middle Earth Role-Playing, and that was a hoot. Bunch of tough, hard-working miners playing Middle Earth Role-Playing, and it went well. They had a good time, and none of them became gamers after, but they had a good time. They were lighthearted about it. They didn't take it too seriously. They thought it was pretty silly, but they got into it, and they had a good time, and we did quite a few sessions that summer. It helped. We worked long 16-hour days, so it was, you're often very tired, but they enjoyed it. We had a good time with that. Let's see.
What kind of mine?
Gold, mostly. Been in the... It was discovered in the late 1800s, was in operation about the 1900s, it's been in the family most of the time, operational on and off. It's been in shut-off mode since the late 90s. It's more of a family cabin area now, but the mine is still there. It's just not active at the moment. These things go through on and off stages. There's 10 levels. It's a drift mine, which means it's horizontal tunnels rather than shafts or strip mining. Though there are a few
I know a little bit.
Okay, and there are a few, well, I'm also explaining for others, and there are a few connecting shafts that connect some of the levels. Some of the levels don't have a portal, a surface entrance. You have to go in through one level, then go down through a shaft to another level. But we were at the time working level number 7, and so yeah, I guess I grew up doing dungeon delving in a way. I started working in the mine when I was 9 years old. Good morning, Dan. Welcome. Yeah.
I lost track of time.
Glad you're here. What's that, Danielle?
I've done surface digging my entire life myself.
Okay.
For different precious stones and stuff like that.
Okay. I was talking about how I grew up spending summers working in a gold mine underground a lot, and in a way, I guess I was kind of doing my own dungeon exploring at an early age. Because we had 10 levels to the mine, most of which are flooded, when they're not operational. But yeah, I needed to get the power jumper for the bus, and it all came crashing down. Don't worry about it. I'll deal with it later. Just have a seat. If you can fill out the attendance roster for all of us. Dan in Brazil is also here.
Okay.
So we got Danielle, Dan in Brazil, myself, and you.
So I haven't done 9.3 completely free as far as I'm aware.
Great. Let's book that for you. Let's book that for you to run Lost Mine of Phandelver for your first time with us. So.
Just so you know, the session is expected to last 3 hours, 2 hours.
2.5 to 3 hours. We try to do it within our allotted time. Everybody will use the pre-gens from it, so we don't have to do character generation. You don't have to teach anybody how to play because we're all experienced gamers. So you'll be able to just jump straight into reading the narrative and facilitating the game. And you don't have to go through the entire campaign. You just need to get as much done as you can in that 3 hours. We're not going to, on your first time, we don't judge you at all on if you finished it or not. That's not important the first time. What matters, we're going to be looking at your style, what you keep, how your tracking is doing, initiative, turn taking, behavior management, etc. We won't, because you're new to GMing, we won't push you the way we did Dan in Spokane. We won't do the player archetype disruptive players to you. So poor Dan here, when he went through his evaluation baseline, John and I took turns being different types of disruptive player archetypes. So
while trying to manage 2 other people.
Yeah. And so we alternated between, like, I was the roaming player who got up and wandered around and looked at everything and not really paying attention. John was alternating between different types, including I was handing him Post-its telling him what to play next. And so he was the cheating player who was trying to look over the screen and was fudging his rolls. And so we were really pushing Dan on to see how he would manage some difficult players. What's that?
I had one of those yesterday.
Yes, you had a little bit of a, you had a disruptive. Well, you had a kid who'd never done it before, who was a latchkey kid. So this is yesterday's drop-in RPG at the library. Mm-hmm. Danielle and John were there, and we had you had 3 kids at the table for No Thank You Evil. Then 2 had to go. 1 migrated over to play actually D&D. So this was a young girl. It was above her reading level, but she really wanted to try it. So her mother and she, John GM'd them, and then this other boy came in who started No Thank You Evil, really didn't care for it. So this kid, clearly latchkey kid, I guess his grandmother takes care of him and some others, but basically apparently it sounds like after school he's just sent to the library and just hangs out and plays video games all the time. Mm-hmm. Real at-risk youth here, and like we run into a lot with these programs. And so he came in, he clearly just wanted to be a murder hobo. Mm. He clearly just wanted to
Fun murder hobo.
What?
He had fun when we got to do it.
Once you got to it, yeah, but that was the struggle. So No Thank You Evil just wasn't feeding his bloodlust, yeah. And so transitioned to Adventures in Middle Earth, and he was really impatient to just get to the action. So Danielle was having to kind of accelerate things to get him to a point where he could actually be engaged. There were quite a few times he was ready to leave, and she was able to talk him into just trying a little bit more. And so she did, and so she was able to hang on to him until he had to go, and so that was good. It was very challenging for her. This kid definitely. What's that?
You solved my pool.
Yes. This kid definitely needs our programs, and he's definitely interested in doing more. He was disappointed to have to go and everything, so we might see more of him in the future. Although we've got a bit of a problem keeping the booking at the library, at that library. I might have to jump around on libraries, which is going to suck because we're starting to get some momentum now already at that library. People are expecting it, and if we have to bump to other locations, we're going to, it's hard to build up the critical mass of, 5 tables worth of people if we have to keep moving around, but it is what it is. The way the library works and limits how you can book, that's why I don't like to use libraries a lot of the time. You can't, it's really hard to have a regular schedule at libraries. Mm-hmm. So, and speaking of which, who has voted in the internal social network poll on a weekend community session?
I was trying to do that yesterday, but I was having problems.
You were having trouble voting or logging in?
Yes.
Both. Well, obviously you had trouble voting if you couldn't log in.
Yeah.
Okay, but I did Discord you that I deleted and reset the account. It was there. The account existed. So you should have gotten an email.
I believe it. I didn't get an email.
You got to check your spam folder.
I did check my spam.
Your RPG research email.
I wasn't able to get into that. I also I was able to get into that.
I didn't see the email part. Yeah. You can't get into your email?
Yeah. You
remember that it's both parts of your name and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, well that I can reset because you need to be able to get into your email. Let's do that right now because if our game masters can't get into their email, it's a problem. Yes, Danielle?
Speaking of Discord, I assumed what you were saying to me, but could you give me context? There's no context in there.
What are you talking about?
When you were...
Danielle, it was there... Oh, wait, maybe this is to Dan.
Yeah, you said...
Oh, I see.
I assumed it was to me.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, it was the wrong... It was the wrong... Yeah, it was the wrong tab completion there. Yeah, wrong tab completion. Sorry about that. Oops. Don't!
Really tired, and I thought it was
that's my bad. Sorry about
I
that.
think we're all just really tired.
Yeah, I was up till about 5:30 this morning on working on infrastructure, so I'm on about 2 hours of sleep. Okay, so first of all, it's Dan Ivey at rpgresearch.com.
Okay, and it's still web to...
webmail.dev2dev.com.
Yeah.
So if you don't know how to log in, I can generate a new password and send it to your other account.
Now, is it Dan Ivey or Danielle Ivey?
Dan Ivey.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
With capitals?
Nope. It is case sensitive, so password, is whatever it is, but the email is all lowercase.
Okay.
Basically, the only ones that capitals really matter, I think, were AOL and CompuServe. If you even know who those are.
I know what AOL
Okay.
is.
I never know these days. What's that?
I remember their CDs.
Yeah. What's that?
I know one out of the two.
Okay.
I remember waiting for...
Yeah. Yep.
I could actually tell when I wasn't going to be able to connect based off of the sounding.
So, if you want to try that, or I can generate a new password and email you to your other account the new password.
I'm going to try again.
Yeah, the modem noise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if you had a busy signal, yeah.
Someone called. Dang it.
Well, I was fortunate enough. I had friends at the University of Utah, which was part of the original ARPA-DARPANet.
Nice.
Excuse me. So when they did the first 4 nodes in, I think, 1972, it was 3 of the nodes were in California and 1 was in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
It was triangle. And I had moved to Utah in 77. I was there way longer than I like to admit.
I'm going to need a new password.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and generate it. Anyway, so they let me, I was like 9 years old, but they let me play around on the early ARPA-DARPANet at the university. And then they also let me play around on old decommissioned PDP punch tape paper. I think it was a punch tape type programmed, yeah. Decommissioned one.
You're not that old?
They were using PDPs, they just didn't let me use the production PDPs for, a gazillion reasons to not let a 9-year-old onto your production servers that your entire university's infrastructure is running on, which was very wise. Decommission one, no big deal. Yeah. Okay, so your GMX email, is that good?
Yeah, that's my main one.
Yep. Ooh, helps with
One
ice.
question, Hawke.
Go ahead, Dan.
The community program, I take it it's the one where you head for Arc Central or other public spaces and have programs there?
So what we're voting on, obviously it doesn't help you, but so right now we have Fridays, drop in an RPG on Fridays. First Friday, we're at the bus and trailer at random locations, different locations each month, once per month on the first Friday. Second and fourth Friday, we're at Spark Central Community Center near downtown Spokane. These are all at 4 to 7 p.m. And then the third Friday, we're at the library, currently at the North Spokane County Library. None of these are broadcasts. These are all, local community and the Northwest programs. If there's a fifth Friday that month, we don't do anything. It's kind of a day, one of our few days off, or one of my few days off. I'm doing 7 days a week now. Welcome back to my workaholism.
You don't have a problem if you quit anytime.
Yeah. No, I can't. I'm fully aware. So the problem is we have a whole slew of game masters who are training who cannot, because of work and such, do any of the community programs during the weekdays. And that's a key part of training and getting your diploma, is that you have to graduate towards running it in one of these where it's a supervised program where I'm there watching and giving notes and feedback before we put you out in the wild like a convention or just other places, upcoming prisons we might be running at and such. So we're trying to pick a time that the most game masters are available on the weekend for a different community session out in the valley, Spokane Valley area is what I've decided. So, because we've got downtown and it's community center. We've got up north currently at the library. I'd like to keep it up north, even if we lose the library. I want to keep it geographically up north. It'd be nice to keep the library, but again, this is why I don't like to use libraries. This has been a problem for decades because they usually limit. It's really hard to keep getting the same space, same time from month to month because they always limit how much you do it, so somebody else can beat you to it, and then you lose your slot, and it's a pain in the rear. But so that's the north end of Spokane. That can bring down people from Deer Park and Newport and such, because it's not that far away up here. But then the next one should be out in the valley, where there's a huge swath of population, and people in Post Falls can come over, and Liberty Lake, etc. So the next one, the weekend one is going to be somewhere out in the valley, and we haven't figured out a location yet. And I'd like it to be some different type of setting. So it's either going to be a school, or better yet, some sort of long-term care facility that'll let us, make it fairly open or have a large enough population. Whether it's senior citizens care, whether it's a rehab center, whether it's a youth center that isn't a community center, right? Because we already got a community center downtown, and I want to have everybody get training in different environments. So it'd be great if we could get, John's going to be talking to some of the veteran affairs associations and see if we can connect with some of those. So that way, trainees have the option, if they do go to different ones, to get the training with the different populations. Yeah. But so for the weekends, the only slot available, let me go ahead and pull up the poll so we can kind of just discuss it a little bit, because this is important for what we're doing. So this is on the RPG, the social network, rpgsn.net. It's invitation only, so if you're not a member of RPG Research right now, you don't have access to the beta. And when we do go to full launch, it won't be general public. It'll still be invitation only to partners and maybe high-level Patreon supporters. Will have access to the RPGSN, Role-Playing Gamers Social Network. So let me pull up I guess I forgot how to turn off showing everybody logging in and logging out, because that makes everything scroll down. By the way, later today from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. will be our monthly Tolkien Society meeting. Right here in the studio, right here on this stream. All right, let's see. Also, by the way, you guys notice I posted a brand new parent-guardian release form for minors. We need, as we do these programs, now at Spark, we got away with it because they already had them sign off on stuff. But as we do these more independently of them, we got to have our own paperwork again. So I was going through my old paperwork. I hadn't updated it for RPG Research since 2014. I had a newer version for Tolkien Moot, but it's different language and a different focus. So I yesterday, while they were running stuff, I hurried and updated this, and through the night I was working on it while I was working on infrastructure. So this is revision 3 long form. I'll have a short version available when appropriate. But when you guys get a chance, take a look at the PDF. Let me know if there's any typos, language issues, formatting issues. I hope it's pretty good, but I was juggling a lot and tired, so yeah. Now I need extra sanity check before we make it a final draft. But I think it's pretty comprehensive. I think it covers a lot. Danielle, definitely with your TR background, definitely take a look at it as well. All right, so Weekend Community Program Day is the poll. Did you get the email with your password?
Yes.
Are you able to log in?
I'm in.
You're in your email.
Yeah.
Now you got to get into your social network.
Yeah.
And to be clear, because Shane was saying, I'm really open for whenever you need me, but I can only do Saturday or Sunday, not both. Well, yeah, this is only to pick one. There will only be one time slot on the weekend. Mm-hmm. It will not be multiple. And if you do Fridays, you're not expected to do the weekends. You're welcome to do the weekend one, but not required. So the reason why, so there's different slots to pick, but we're only going to do one. So far we've got 4 votes. So the slots are Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. That's the only one on Saturday that I can make be available to supervise, etc. Because we've got our Game Master workshop from 9 to noon. Mm-hmm. And then after 4 p.m. I've got sign language, and then after 6 p.m. it's date night, and I try to keep that sacrosanct with my fiance.
Oh, yeah.
I learned that lesson from my first marriage, not to screw that up. And so that's the only time I can do that. And once a month, John or somebody else will have to supervise because I have Tolkien Society from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. But that's a pretty good time for a lot of people typically. Sundays, 9 a.m. to noon, and then basically it moves an hour ahead, 3-hour increments. Sundays, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., Sundays, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., or Sundays, it just says noon to 3, oops. Sundays, noon to 3 is what that's supposed to say, and then Sundays, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. So, yeah. And the poll, unfortunately, with the current incarnation of the internet, only allows 1 vote. So if you can do more than one, put it in the comments, like Shane did.
Is it normal to have the name right before the HTTP?
What?
Is it normal to have the name right before the HTTPS : //
What are you talking about?
The link that I got to? Well, not only is it Danielle's, but it's Danielle HTTP. No. Get rid of anything before the HTTPS. Yeah, that's what I figured.
You're talking about in Discord?
No, in terms of the email that I was given.
What? The email?
Yeah.
Danielle?
Sorry, you're not the only one who have done this to me and a Danielle.
Why did...
So I find it very funny.
That doesn't make any sense. Hang on. Sorry I'm doing some administrative stuff, but kind of important that everybody's communicating. Let me log in as admin here. And by the way, a little weird bug, the front page login for rpgsn.net excuse me, doesn't seem to work. That box that's right on the front, I've had trouble. I think at least for my admin account, I don't know if it works for other accounts. So if you have trouble logging with that front one, there's that little key circle thing that says login in the upper right-hand corner. Just use that. That seems to work just fine. So you click that and then log in, and you shouldn't have any problems.
Okay.
It's once your account's properly set up. But I'm just so you know, if I can disable that front one and just have a thing that says login in the upper right-hand corner, that's what I will do at some point. But I'm still getting the hang of this. All right. Let's look at your users. Users, tools. Nope, that's not it. How do I? It's a different one. There it is. User accounts. All right. That doesn't make any sense because it says Dan. I'm looking right at it. It says Dan. It says @Dan. I don't know how you got. It says it right there. I don't know how you got Danielle mixed into that.
I don't know either.
That is bizarre. Anyway, yeah, just get rid of the Danielle part. That shouldn't even be there. I don't know what happened. That makes me worried that there might be a database issue or something. Or email script issue. Huh. I'll have to do some more tests. Still not definite on this particular platform. It's got some shortcomings. Good thing that was empty.
Yeah.
That would have been a wake up for you this morning. Okay, but meanwhile, Dan in Brazil, we were going to go ahead and go over, review your voices quickly, and go, and then go from there. So you said you had a little bit of trouble finding resources for like a cowboy western voice.
Yeah, I think I just didn't look around the right places. Some friends actually refer me to some stuff, but it's mostly video games. And the problem with video games is that sometimes there's a lot of content without much voice acting, or it's very repetitive.
The best resource, the best resource would be old black and white cowboy movies or TV shows, like Rawhide or something like that, or Gunsmoke or any of those.
Look up Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood in general.
Yeah.
Or John Wayne. Any John Wayne movie, although John Wayne has a very distinctive style. Well, if that's how it's going to be, Pilgrim, let's move it out. Move it on out. It's John Wayne's distinctive version. But any of those old classic westerns, and you'll find some characters in there, especially like Gunsmoke and such. Well, golly, mister, we got to get on down there and take care of that. You know what I mean? Oh, my, hey, Sheriff, help me out, Sheriff. So you got really exaggerated characters in Gunsmoke and such. Rawhide had a pretty good variety as well. You start getting the newer ones like Bonanza and others. They didn't have the accents as much and such, so they were less useful.
Hateful Eight, which was making fun of.
What's that?
Not even like Hateful Eight, which was making fun of.
Yeah. And then when you get into the newer movies, again, the newer movies like, when I say newer, I mean 80s and 90s westerns, are like Tombstone and, what's that?
Wider.
Yeah, all those others. The accents are more toned down and such, so the older ones are more over the top, and that makes it easier to develop when it's not your primary language and such. So you can easily find clips on YouTube if you just type in Gunsmoke or Rawhide or John Wayne Cowboy, something like that. You should be able to find lots of clips that way to come up with a voice that works for you. But did you come up with something that at least is a starting point?
Not really, actually. Just a catchphrase, really.
Okay. Okay.
But
all right. So we'll give you another week on that to do your research to try to find some that connect and resonate for you. Let's quickly review through your other voices, though, just so you're refreshing on them. So go ahead and read out very quickly what it is, what the variables are that describe it, and the catchphrase, and then go ahead and do it. Grab a book to read through randomly, just read a sentence or so, and then we'll go through each one quickly.
Right. Let me just grab a book.
Yep, you bet.
So I thought I took my sheet with my names, but the last sheet it said nicely, but I cannot find it right this second.
You took your what?
The sheet that had all the names and like.
Oh, of your voices?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not where I thought it was.
Okay.
So I have an older one, but I don't think it has. I can't remember what the last voice we had was.
Okay, so we might be a little light on the voice review today. Remember, folks, we want to keep doing this each week. We're trying to get each of you to 10 voices minimum for your GM level 1 diploma. So, meanwhile, then, while we're waiting for that, Danielle has reached a milestone. I've signed her off on No Thank You Evil in the public. She has met all the criteria. She's done it many times. She's shown competence and confidence in running it, multiple set advententures. Mm-hmm. She's worked with young and old with it. She's shown really good consistent energy, used her voicing, done a good job managing turn taking, adapted to, when they're brand new to it, using the very light version of the rules without even writing down, they just use the tokens. to when they come back later and they want to keep playing it, making their own characters so that they have that experience of it being more customized and a little more advanced rules. Doing it in difficult environments with a lot of noise and distractions, and working with kids who are struggling with different challenges. And so she's signed off on her no thank you evil badge, if you will. We'll have to come up with little badge icons or something for each of these that we can then turn into buttons or things to put on the sashes. But congratulations, Danielle. So on your profile, as I figure out how to add fields, I'll start putting in there, like, you know, your endorsements or whatever they are that you're signed off on. Mm-hmm. So the one she still needs to work on, she's fairly far along on Eves of Mirkwood, Adventures of Middle-earth Eves of Mirkwood. Just needs to kind of think probably some refresher on that, but fairly comfortable, it sounds like.
I just have to do it with me not using it because I wasn't here.
Right, and so I've got to see that in the wild again. But if you do as good a job with that as you did with No Thank You Evil, you should sign off on that pretty quickly. D&D 5e...
You saw me go through the 5e part. Oh no, that was Van Elder, wasn't it? No, that was Eves.
That was Eves, but that's not a group, and that's not... Yeah, I mean, I've seen you deal with a difficult kid in it, so that helps. But it needs to be in a group setting, and you need to actually get through more, you know, try to get through the whole adventure. You need to actually complete the whole Eves of Mirkwood session to get to that point. So you'll get there pretty quickly. You're pretty far along, but it looks like Lost Mine of Fandelver is the one that you really need to refresh even more during your hiatus on your internship. There were a lot of. I mean, you had an unruly group last time at Drop In RPG. So that was.
They were not unruly. They were just not wanting to listen and wanted to do their own thing. Their own time.
That would be an unruly group. They weren't like rioting, but they were unruly.
They weren't slashing everything with legs either.
No, they weren't being murder hobos, but they were highly doing their own conversations. They were difficult to keep reined in and focused and turn taking and all of that. And yeah. So anyway.
They had so many good ideas. They just didn't know how to express
them.
Yeah.
Well, the GM as the facilitator needs to help them with that process. So, and I pointed, I gave you the feedback on that on the areas that I saw that you could easily work on, and then the other stuff's just a practice thing. But then you're close to getting those two signed off, and then we've got to figure out what the other two are. Star Wars is the number 4, mm-hmm. and then number 5 is the one we still haven't nailed down. So between learning a procedural one versus like a superhero one, I think that's our choices, right? Because we're trying to, yeah. What do you have as far as a preference? Learning a game that you can use in different procedural settings, so a gumshoe, police procedural, court procedural, medical procedural, whatever. Something we're trying to pick a system that'll let us do all the procedural stuff. Maybe Doctor Who, maybe something else, or a superhero setting, which is you may not get to use Sentinels. There's just so don't base it on that specific system. We're talking genre here. Based on genre, which would you prefer?
I probably prefer superhero.
I figured.
I'm kind of on the fence, but I lean more towards superhero.
Okay.
And I think that has to do with the fact that that's my background.
Okay.
But I like when I watch TV, I do watch.
And I'm waffling here because I want our GMs to learn to do the procedural stuff, but I'm thinking that's going to require more advanced GMs. I think it's going to be a level 2 thing. So I think people can do superheroes pretty easily and get it.
It's closer to the wheelhouse.
D&D and all of that, it's similar. So I'm thinking about making the procedural one a GM level 2 sign off compared to level 1. Yeah, and we don't need another sci-fi setting because we have Star Wars. Star Wars has a bigger reach than Doctor Who. As much as I love Doctor Who, Star Wars has a bigger reach. For better or worse, that's just a reality. At least currently, it ebbs and flows. But all right, well then I think we'll make system number 5 a superhero system. We've just got to hash out which one it's going to be. So we Danielle ran Sentinels. John ran Heroes Unlimited, which I wasn't there for that, so we're going to have to rerun that again because he struggled with the complexity of the system.
We all struggled.
Yeah, well, and see, I'm used to complex systems like Rollmaster and others, so that might make a big difference. I can make it easier for people to deal with complex systems. Now, I've read reviews of it saying that the system itself is problematic, and I don't know. I haven't run it, so
Yeah.
I got another copy of the book just so that it'd make it easier to have two books when we go through it again.
Mm-hmm.
Hero system just isn't in print, so that doesn't do us any good. The only other one that's in print besides Heroes Unlimited Sentinels is Mutants and Masterminds, but that's another D20 system.
Yeah.
So we'll try it because we have to still give it a fair shake. But I really don't want it to be another D20 system. We already have enough between D&D 5e and AIM.
Yeah.
That's already two D20 systems. We want to have people have more breadth than that because each different systems expand you as GM capabilities. What's that, Danielle?
My brain is not pulling up what kind of system GURPS is.
GURPS? GURPS is its own system, Generic Universal Role-Playing System by Steve Jackson Games. So that one for police procedural has the cops book. But I don't.
Does it also have like a mutants?
A what?
The superhero one?
Doesn't it have a mutants expansion?
Does it?
I think so. I think I've seen it.
Okay, well then that might be one to look at as well. GURPS is another. GURPS Supers. Let's see if it's currently in print. Publication 1989, first edition, third edition, 90, 2007. See, I don't think it's in print.
Hello, I'm back.
Hello, welcome back.
Oh, GURPS. GURPS isn't a system. GURPS is an idea. GURPS is everything. Everything that lies under the sun underneath the surface has a GURPS adaptation. You just have to dig deep enough.
How much are your paychecks from GURPS?
I don't have a problem with GURPS. It's like it can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. The GURPS Lite that's in a lot of settings. So, for example, Katie has run GURPS Lite for Discworld because Discworld comes with GURPS Lite. If those of you who are fans of Terry Pratchett's series, Katie loves Discworld, and why didn't that link go where I wanted to go? So if you do the light version, it's not that big a deal. You can layer it, just like Rollmaster and others. You can make it more or less complicated because it gives you so many options. That's what's overwhelming for people is it has so many options. Okay, so I'm looking at GURPS 4th edition Supers, available as digital files, out of print. Let's see. So black and white pages, soft cover, out of print. 150 PDF, black and white, soft cover. I'm confused by what's what. Okay, here's something that says from Amazon. Okay, now this one says it's 3.3 edition is available in print. So that puts it in the running then. I didn't know it was still in print because Wikipedia makes it look like it hasn't been reprinted since 2007. But according to the Steve Jackson Games website, sggames.com/GURPS/books/supers, they do offer both PDF and softcover versions of it. There's different ISBN numbers. I don't know why. But I click it, it says available now at Amazon as a physical copy. So that's something I'll put to as a possibility here. Because I do have a bunch of GURPS rules here. And then I say my GURPS is very flexible, so you can set it, make it your own system setting, etc. And maybe it'll be less of a mess compared to Heroes Unlimited. What's that?
If we were to do some like GURPS for the superhero, then it could just be the next step up for the police world.
Right. Well, right. Yeah, let's say that would be good because it would introduce you to GURPS system? Because none of you guys have GURPS experience, as far as I know.
No.
I did, I made a character in a GURPS thing once, but it was like a GURPS like, I can't remember what it's called.
Okay.
It was a mutant one.
All right.
That was GURPS like based on C. Jackson's games, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so that might not be a bad way to go. We'll have to evaluate. We'll have to see if it works, if it's clunky, how it compares to the others. So we have a bunch of evaluating to do before we can nail down game system 5. And then remember, after you get your 5 intro, because it has to have an intro adventure of some kind.
Yeah.
So after you get your 5 intros, then you have to pick one campaign and be able to run the campaign. Now, you don't have to run the campaign all the way through to get sign-off. I just have to see you run several sessions of at least 2 or 3 sessions into the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, the most common one to pick right now, which is probably the one we're standardized on, is Eves of Mirkwood.
Mm-hmm.
For the moment, I'm leaving open-ended that you can pick a campaign in whichever one you want. But Eves of Mirkwood has a 35-year campaign. Now, that doesn't mean you play it for 35 years, people. We know that. But it covers 35 years of adventure for the characters, which is many, many months or years of actual play. So that's great that that's laid out that way. And so John's been progressing on that one. He's been running the actual campaign. And, of course, since it's AIM, and so the resources are all there to do a campaign. Certainly D&D 5e, there's a bunch. Again, the problem with going too far with D&D 5e is it doesn't have the behavior modification that the other systems we're picking we like. And that's one of the things we'll be looking at with the superheroes, because Star Wars has some of the behavior modifications with force points, etc. But whatever this 5th one is for superheroes, there needs to be a behavior modification, or we're going to have all these at-risk youth playing supervillains and stuff, right? There needs to be something that's going to keep them on the light side. So that's when we're evaluating the superhero systems, we need to look at the behavior modification and keeping them on the heroic side, what features are built into it. So whether Sentinels, Mutants and Masterminds, Heroes Unlimited.
Sentinels does have that built in.
What's that?
Sentinels does have that built in with like a story point.
Right. Yeah. So, but I'm just laying them all out. Mutants and Masterminds, Heroes Unlimited, or GURPS Powers. We got to keep that in mind in our evaluation. But it sounds like we'll go ahead and standardize as a superhero game as the 5th game on your sign off. If GURPS has it, again, GURPS is so flexible, it probably is easy enough to pick and choose as needed. That certainly is a good gateway into your level 2 towards the police procedural and such. Yeah. And that police procedural cops covers all of the different police ones, whether you're a street cop, police chases, detective, the court stuff, jail. It covers all of the different stuff that's related to the legal system. So that's pretty good. Now, it's probably not one we're going to run when we're doing our prison programs. I think that's where we're going to get some pushback.
Yeah, I can't see why that would be a problem.
Okay, so we got that nailed down. Then we're going to focus on finishing the evaluation process of the in-print superheroes. We got 4 to pick from, it sounds like. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I have Mutants and Masterminds. I think I poo-pooed it because it was D20. So I may have to get that as well.
I believe I have that one.
Oh, is it mine? I
was supposed to be, yeah.
Okay, you're going to run it?
I was trying to go through it and try to understand it, but I barely had been able to scratch the surface of it.
Okay, if you can just bring that back, and then either I or somebody, or John will run it or something.
Yeah.
You've got to get your other stuff signed off on.
Yeah.
So get your baseline. So Danielle, so you need to get your Eves of Mirkwood and Lost Mine of Phandelver sign-offs done. So really start looking for opportunities to run those in the wild, because you've already done both in the bubble here, so there's no point running in the bubble again. You just need to have the opportunity to run it in the wild.
I actually would like to run, if I did run it in the bubble again, it would be the campaign first.
Yeah, when you do the campaign, that's fine, because you've never run the campaign. So when it's your first time, we want you to run it in the bubble first. After that, we're going to kind of push you to run it in the wild, because your learning is going to be a lot faster in the wild with with supervision. When I say in the wild, I mean the supervised wild of the community program, and such. Not full blown, wild. So make sure you're refreshing on those too, so that you're comfortable running those, so you can get signed off on those at the upcoming programs. For example, Spark Central next week. Be ready to run both 5. Keep of course your No Thank You Evil up to par. I don't think that's going to be a problem for you. But really brush up on your Lost Mine of Fandelver and your Eves of Mirkwood, and being able to run them in one session. Okay, because I'd love to get you signed off on all 3, in quick succession, and then we can focus on Star Wars and superheroes.
Yeah.
And then all you'll have left is is the Darkening Mirkwood campaign, or whatever campaign. So here's the question. I want to give you guys the freedom to do what you want to do as GMs, but I'm trying to make the baseline as standard and as quick as possible, with high quality, but consistent between you guys. Do you guys, sometimes you can give people too much freedom of choice.
Mm-hmm.
Would you guys prefer that I just say, here's the campaign you must learn to sign off on GM level 1, or do you prefer that I leave you the freedom to pick which campaign you would run?
I think freedom to pick whatever campaign you want would be better on GM level 2.
Okay. Danielle? I can't hear you.
I said I concur.
Okay. And Dan in Brazil?
I think it would be interesting because it might be able to allow us to measure something that having a default campaign wouldn't allow, which is choice of campaign. Oh, you chose this campaign. Why? And how well do you adapt this to this need? Or, we chose Eves of Mirkwood as one of our default campaigns because having one default one for GM1 allows us to have a standard from which we can measure everyone consistently. But setting these campaigns as a GM, proposing campaigns might be part of GM's queue. I'm not sure if this would be appropriate for GM2 or GM3, but I think it would be interesting to having the process of campaign selection and setup be actually something that is also graded in a way.
Yeah, 2 and 3, you do go into, you do more campaigns, and you start doing your own campaign design and such as well. So that's definitely already in 2 and 3. So I'm not quite sure what you're voting for as far as GM level 1. Remember, Eves of Mirkwood is not a campaign. Eves of Mirkwood is a one-shot. Darkening of Mirkwood is the campaign.
Okay, just to translate, I think the GM level 1 have a single campaign, Lost Mine of Fandelver, anything that is accessible. Level 2 onwards, then you have more flexibility, just
Okay, so you want me to go ahead and say this is the campaign all GM level 1 should be working on GM level 1?
Yeah, something popular, D&D, 5e, Lost Mine seems Lost Mine.
No, it won't be D&D 5e because it doesn't have the behavior modification.
Oh, right.
So it has to be one of the others. So there's Star Wars, there's AIM, there's I'm suddenly blanking. Star Wars, AIM. What am I forgetting? Whatever the superhero one.
Yeah.
Mutants and Masterminds?
Well, that's one of the superhero ones. Am I forgetting?
The other two were, still trying to hash out a bit.
Okay.
Because
so I haven't quite now. I need to write now. I'm just not awake enough today. There's a post-it. I'm losing track of my thoughts here. I got something. All right. So I think what I'm hearing though is people prefer for at least level 1. I make an executive decision and say this is the campaign everybody's going to learn at level 1. Then level 2, you can have more freedom because you're going to be further along in your skills.
Yeah.
Sounds like Dan in Brazil is wants a little more freedom on that. But it sounds like, Dan, you're okay if that was more of a GM level 2 as far as the freedom of different campaigns at level 2?
Yeah, just so the first campaign is constant to become a bit of a laboratory in a way that we can assess GME skills in a consistent manner.
Well, that's always how we do things a lot of it anyway, so... All right, so let me do this for level 1. I just want to get, it's going to be on the website. I've got so many different versions of this, I need to nail it down for you guys so you can focus more. Star Wars. Oh, No Thank You Evil, that's what we're forgetting.
Yeah.
That was the one that I was blanking on. No Thank You Evil. It won't necessarily be in this order. I actually have an order on the website that I expect it to be, but actually it might be this. So you have to have at least 3 adventures. Then we have Star Wars. Any one box. And then we have superheroes. So we've nailed that down, so I'm not waffling anymore on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so 1 shot. Then we have, so I'm going to just go ahead and say aim, darkening for the campaign, 10 voices. Okay, I'm trying to think if there's anything else on the sign-off checklist for you finishing your GM level 1. So here's what I have so far for you. Excuse me. What's that, Danielle?
What if you had 1 campaign for each, besides Don't Think You Evil, of course, for each system that we have at GM level 1, and then they can choose to check off on one.
That's what I originally was thinking, and what I'm noticing is people are spinning their wheels on that. I think it's becoming too much choice for people because nobody.
Few choices at this moment.
Well, I've told everybody to go ahead and pick a campaign for other systems, and the only one anybody's ever come up with is Darkening so far, and this is after 8 months of requesting people find other campaigns they'd be interested in running. And D&D, but D&D really isn't in the running for this. Unless you can give me a D&D with high behavior modification, 5e, it's not really in the running. So it's from the other 4. No Thank You Evil doesn't really make a good campaign setting.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole bunch of adventures. Not the best for a campaign setting because, now, it's not that you couldn't run a campaign, but as far as I know, they don't offer a campaign in print. All of these need to be in print. No custom campaigns for level 1.
Mm-hmm.
Level 2 and 3, you get to start making custom stuff. So you get to pick from Star Wars, superheroes, or AIM. Basically, it would be from one of those 3 because there's plenty of Star Wars campaigns. There's plenty of Middle Earth campaigns.
Are there any superhero campaigns?
I have no idea. We're up in the air on that one because we don't even know which superhero one we're talking. That'll be part of our evaluation. Does it offer one-shots and does it offer campaign? Does it have an introductory version? Things like that. We'll have to look at that in our superhero evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
But at least we've nailed down that's what it'll be for GM level 1 because I've been going back and forth. And I don't want to add a 6th at level 1. It's just getting to be too much.
Yeah.
It's enough as it is.
So what I'm looking at in terms of process of elimination where we are right now,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of campaigns, we either have a Star Wars campaign,
Mm-hmm.
which means you'd have to be familiar with Star Wars and
Yeah, you need to know the Star Wars universe, yeah.
The majority of our GMs aren't that familiar with Star Wars, or Darkening of Mirkwood, which is flowing from 5th edition.
Yeah, it uses the 5th edition system, yeah. And then whatever we find with superheroes. So those are the only ones that really look like options for campaigns at GM level 1. And so that's what I was asking, is like, should I let each GM decide which one they want to pick a campaign? There'd be a limited selection. If it's AIM, it has to be Darkening of Mirkwood. If it's Star Wars, it'll have to be based on one of the boxes they pick, whatever. And I think that is getting more into GM level 2 stuff, I think, at this point. I think in complexity, and trying to get you your baseline GM level 1 so that we can have a baseline that everybody signs off on their GM level 1, which is less diverse than levels 2 on up. I think I'm going to need to just go ahead and rule that Darkening of Mirkwood will be the campaign.
Yeah.
Because as I said, I've asked people to come up with others and propose others for 8 months. And
the reason I didn't look for one is because I think that Mirkwood would be the one most logical for me to go down.
Right. Well, yeah, and it has good behavior modification, etc. Especially since we had the fellowship focus. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and make an executive decision that that's what's going to be. Is Darkening of Mirkwood is the campaign of every GM level 1 learns Darkening of Mirkwood.
Yeah.
Is able to run at least several sessions in. The rest will just come with time. But as long as I can see that you can run the first 2 or 3 sessions of the campaign with competence and confidence, you'll get signed off on the first part of, because it's a long campaign. So sign off on that first part, and then you can build on it in GM level 2, or pick a different campaign in GM level 2. And so, because I did already have that you would pick another campaign in GM level 2 anyway. So that one might be where we open up the freedom a little bit more. We don't want to get so far afield that it's impossible to have metrics.
Yeah.
But we want it to be pretty, more freedom with level 2. And then 10 voices. Everybody has to have 10 voices signed off as part of their GM level 1. Was there anything else you remember me, and I'll have to pull it up on the website, as far as setting what you guys needed to do before I signed you off on GM level 1? Anybody recall?
Well, originally you were going to have us have Advocate 1.
Yeah, those are separate certifications, or training diplomas, what have you. Yeah, RPG Advocate 1 and RPG Facilitator 1. What?
The only thing that's coming up is that originally you wanted us to have Advocate before we got to GM level 1, so that way we could deal with people in the field.
Yeah, with advocacy and such. I've gone ahead and separated that as a separate goal. You're going to get some of it as a GM, but I guess part of it is that you sign off on the history and knowledge test, right? So history and knowledge test is part of the history knowledge test, which would be a light version of the advocate, but you wouldn't be a full-blown advocate. But at least you would have some of that advocacy knowledge. The advocate's supposed to be able to do a lot of the speaking and convincing. And again, I'm trying to break these into smaller, more manageable pieces so people can feel more progression without feeling like it's insurmountable. And then I recommend that you get the RPG Advocate 1 as well, because then you'll be that much better at recruiting and creating opportunities. As an advocate. If you get your advocate level 2, that's public speaking in large scale. Advocate 1 is small scale and individual scale. So I recommend that. So I'm looking through the checklist so that you're able to run multiple players. You all have to pass the player code of conduct test and the GM code of conduct test.
And obviously the background check.
Well, everybody, that's all volunteers, period. That's not, okay, I'm just reading through my descriptions here. 3, okay. Blah, blah, blah. Errors. Let's see. So part of your tests, because I have to put together a final GM level 1 volunteer test, which is different than the certification tests that I have from earlier drafts. So here's some of the core competencies that you'll have to sign off on the test. So you've got that the mechanical knowledge, you'll have to have some basics of that. That's witnessed. You get signed off on that from you showing competence. That won't be in a written test. That will be observational. Your 10 voices, we go through the process. Your history knowledge test will be a written test. Your test on player code of conduct will be written. Again, when I say written, I can do these verbally if necessary. If anybody needs me to make accommodations or something, we can do that if we can find the time. The GM code of conduct would also be written. Then Tuckman group basics. So some of the theory. So I should just say theory. Basic theory. Basic theory test. Theory test, which includes Tuckman, flow, conflict res, which I think we need to get into more. I don't think you guys have gotten much training on that yet lately. Yes.
I dug a little bit into powers real quick, just so you know, it is out of print for the physical copy. However,
No, it's not. It's not. I'm on I go to the Steve Jackson Games website.
Yep. I'm there.
And I click on, there's one that says out of print, but there's one that says Amazon, and I go there and it's available new in print.
Oh.
It's confusing because they have one that says it's out of print and they have one that says it's in print. Just go to the one that says available now at Amazon. It's the second one down.
Okay.
ISBN 816-7 is how it ends.
Okay.
And then they've got the PDF below that for less. But so both are available, both PDF and physical. And I've already got it in my shopping cart for Amazon.
Okay.
Unless I already have a copy. I should check that before I go crazy. Because you never know. I may have already. So, yeah, no, it's in print. It's just they haven't made a new version, but they've been keeping it in print. So, it's $25. What's that?
It's 4th edition GURPS. What are we on?
4th? I think they've got a GURPS 5th, but I don't know. Let's see what's... That's a good question. Everything on Amazon says 4th edition. I'm a little fuzzy on, let's see. Yeah, so the website. The GURPS website says GURPS 4th edition, so it's 4th edition. So we're good. It's the same version. And then there's a GURPS Lite 32-page version, which definitely we want to consider for one-shots. So I think maybe if we do the superheroes one, if they have a GURPS Lite version for an introductory one-shot one, that might be the way to go. Because GURPS you can really bog down, and we need it to wrap up in a 3-hour session. So we'll have to see if they have a GURPS Lite option with the powers. Often they include in their supplements a light version to introduce you. And then you can layer in, which is what's nice about it. So that'll be all part of our evaluation. We'll have to play through and figure it out, and then we'll know when we come out the other end. But it is in print, and so it's in the running. As I said, and then Mutants and Masterminds, that's still in print, right? Or is it? Let's see. mutantsandmasterminds.com, the world's greatest superhero RPG. Well, way to toot your own horn. Shop. And that's through Green Ronin. You know what? I don't think we can do that. I think that's the problem. I think they're the one that has the restrictive licensing. Remember, I go out and ask for permission to use products? Oh, maybe it's not them. Let me see. Nope, no, it is them. Green Ronin is in the cannot recommend clients use category. It's the only one out of all the RPG companies we've talked to so far. Do not use because of their licensing permission being too complicated or inappropriate for our services or our clients. They have a really overreaching. We would have to pay some pretty heavy licensing fees to run this in community centers, even if we're not making money. But if we happen to get any donations or anything, they want to cut. Yeah, you want to run it with no money involved and no organization at your friendly neighborhood game store. That's fine. Moment money's involved, they want to cut, even if you're a nonprofit. They didn't care that we were a nonprofit. Okay. So we can't use any Green Ronin products because that's just too much hassle.
Well, you think the Steve Jackson games?
I'll have to check on that. Let's see if I have them.
Based on their history.
What is? I would hope they'd be pretty open based on their history. Formation of Electronic Frontier Foundation. So they may be ones I haven't gotten feedback. Let's see. We've got Wizards, we've got Chaosium, we have Cubicle 7, Iron Crown Enterprises, Paizo, Monte Cook Games, White Wolf. All of those I have like different levels of confirmation. Monte Cook doesn't have a problem, but I've been having trouble getting them to give me a formal document. They keep saying, yeah, we're working on it. And they basically said kind of yes, so we're using it, but I'm still trying to get them to formalize it. So it looks like you need to add to the to-do limited nonprofit. Who do I have under there? That's Green Ronin. Okay, so I need to add a section here under authorized products and licenses. We need to talk to Steve Jackson Games and Palladium because we haven't asked them. And if we use superheroes or any of their stuff, riffs, things like that. So let's put a page here for...
Oh, and we should ask, oh God, who does... as well.
Who's the company?
I gotta get the
Okay, because that'll also be a limiting factor if they say no, we won't let you. Well, then we won't use your product. We've lots of others to choose from then. That will help make narrow the field down for us. What's that?
I said I know they're their own game company.
Board Game
Greater
Quest.
Than Games.
What is it?
Greater Than Games.
Greater Than Games. So they're a little tiny company, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they have Sentinels in the Multiverse and nothing.
Yeah, usually the small ones are very happy to say yes. Well, that's the thing. That's when they get too big for their britches. I'm like, and really, Green Ronin's not that big for them to be that cocky about it. It's like, really, you don't want an organization out there that has a global reach promoting your product, really? Okay. I'm sorry. What was the name of that company again?
Greater Than Games.
Greater Than Games. Sentinels. All right, so I'm putting all this on the website in the section for authorized products on the to-do. Okay, so you got Steve Jackson Games, Palladium, and Greater Than Games are to be asked.
Yeah,
Were there-
I don't think they have anything else.
Fantasy Flight Games. That's another one.
Oh, yeah.
I need to.
That with Star Wars.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm worried about that one. We may have to drop Star Wars if that's the case. But we've got Cubicle 7, so we could fall back on Doctor Who if we had to, or something else. I would be bummed if they said no on that one, but we have to be careful. Fantasy Flight Games. I need to ask, especially Star Wars. Because they might not have a choice. It might be Disney licensing that restricts their ability to let us use it. They just may not have a choice. And then that might mean we have to cross that off the list. So then, and Star Trek is no longer in print and doesn't have the reach it used to have. That's an older generational thing now. Doctor Who seems to be popular with younger folks. It's got spans, it's been doing 50 years, so it spans generations, and it's actively putting stuff out. So as far as a sci-fi one, I think Doctor Who's a safe fallback, and we already have permission from Cubicle 7 to use any of their products. They're pretty open about it. They've always been pretty good about that. So we have a fallback if Star Wars falls through, but that would be a bummer.
And all the more reason to standardize.
For Sentinels.
What's that?
There is a new product out for Sentinels. They said they did an actual one shot.
Oh, okay. That's good to know in our evaluation. We'll have to actually try it out. So if you want to acquire that and run us through it at some point, that would be helpful in our evaluation.
Will do.
Maybe you can talk to them into giving you a free version for us to evaluate. Point out who the organization is and that we're considering, standardizing on their products, and they might send you a free one for evaluation.
Yeah.
So, worth trying. Worst they can do is say no, and just have to get one anyway. I'm trying to think if there's any others in print sci-fi wise that I guess I don't need to worry about it too much, but that could really, that would be a real bummer.
Yeah.
But we gotta keep it safe. We can't afford getting into a legal thing. Oh my goodness, that would be nasty. All right, so basic theory, Tuckman, flow, conflict resolution, Avalon interaction patterns, rosters, because that's really important that you guys roster/initiative sign off on that. A lot of you have not been following that consistently, so we need to get people doing. That's more observational. That, hey, are you doing your rosters now? No, thank you. Evil doesn't need rosters. All the others do. So I expect you guys from our workshop that we did before to be using your rosters. You're welcome to use these things up here for initiative tracking, and that's great, but you still need your roster.
Yeah.
And I've been noticing people have been really inconsistent, including John, about that, and I'm going to You're not going to get your final sign-off if you don't start using your rosters, because it really does improve game flow and makes the GM look more confident and everything, because it's all right there. So get in the habit. I'm working on some digital copies of rosters for each of these games. So that'll make your life easier, that I can just give you a printed blank that you can just fill in, and that'll make life easier. But for now, graph paper and create your own like we did in the workshop. If you don't remember, go back and watch the video. It's a separate video. It's only about an hour or so, hour and a half. We just walked through the roster fields and then initiative tracking. Any other things you think of that we've gone through as GM level 1 that have been pretty critical that we need to make sure we test out everybody on?
I just use a couple of the basic archetypes. So like the granite and
archetypes. Yeah, GM and player archetypes. No, that's an important one, because you got to be able to recognize that. We're not pushing hard. GM level 1, you don't have to fix them. You just need to recognize them at level 1. Yeah. And I'll help you in the real world if you have a problem. But the first step at level 1 is just recognizing, right? The first step of overcoming and fixing a problem is recognizing you have a problem.
Yeah.
So that's level 1. Oh, great, we're going to do 12-step here. We have 12 levels of game mastering. Great.
13 no matter what. 13th level is that you do all of this with your eyes.
Yeah, but 13th level is missing, so you go from 12 to 14.
We're also talking about RPGs here. That's railroading.
What was that, Dan?
The dreaded 13th level where you turn into a rat.
Okay, so yeah, player and GM archetype recognition. You don't have to fix them, but you got to know how to recognize them. And then, you'll have some base training, but you want to sign off on that. That'll be more level 2. What else are some of the key components? Because I need to put this all into the checklist. What's that?
It's 10:30, so I have to...
Okay, is there anything else you want us to throw in there as far as GM training that you think level 1 we need to make sure everybody's doing that I haven't mentioned?
Just recognition of archetypes and recognition of problems that might be coming.
So it's recognition. Recognition is not a word, Danielle.
It is now.
It's now. I like it, but that's okay. Oh, I understand. No, extra syllables. Why not? Okay, Danielle, you go take off. Be safe on your drive. Thanks for popping in. Dan, I know you're newer to this, but I'm open to your input if you can think of any basics at level 1 that we need to make sure that we've already covered that you can think of, or if we haven't covered yet, what do you think are some good ones to require at GM level 1 for your diploma?
Just to make sure, I don't think I have the full list of requirements we've already discussed here. I've only now just opened a document to write it down. We have conflict resolution, recognizing player archetypes, recognizing own GM archetypes, rostering, and what have I missed here?
All right, I'm going to go right now through my Post-it. I'm going to get it all on the website in a more organized fashion, but here's where we're at. So D&D 5e and Lost Mines of Phandelver. AIM, Adventures of Middle-earth, and Eves of Mirkwood. No Thank You Evil, and 3 Adventures. And all of these you get signed off on in the bubble, and then in community or semi-wild. You don't have to be signed off on convention or full wild to get your GM level 1. That's more GM level 2. As long as you're able to run it in a community setting or with friends or game store where it feels kind of safe, that's good enough for GM level 1. You're not out in the professional setting, and you're not, so that's more GM level 2. Star Wars, 1 box. You pick one of the 4 box starter sets and be able to run that. Which, by the way, that is more than a one-shot. So it's a mid-range. You are getting more than what you can do a condensed version as a one-shot, but it isn't really a one-shot. It's more like 2 or 3 sessions. Yeah. So it's kind of an in-between thing there. And then superheroes, some kind of one-shot, whatever we figure that out to be. And then a campaign, Adventures of Middle-earth, AIM, Darkening of Mirkwood. So that's the one campaign everybody will have to learn. 10 voices. History and knowledge test, so it's kind of RPG Advocate Light. Or RPG Advocate 0. 0 level. test on player code of conduct, test on GM code of conduct, basic theoretical knowledge, which will include, not necessarily limited to, but will include Tuckman's theory of small group, forming, storming, norming, forming. You don't have to know it in depth, just the basics and identifying when you're in forming, storming, norming, or performing. When I ask you, well, where's this group at? We're still stuck in the storming phase, which is going to be most of the time with one-shots.
Yeah.
But you need to be able to recognize that and use at least the rudimentary understanding of those stages. Flow state, because that's fundamental to everything we do. The immersion scale, which I've still got to teach you guys. Immersion scale. Conflict resolution, which I still got to teach you guys. Add-on interaction patterns, I think I've taught all of you that. Rosters and initiative. GM archetypes and player archetypes. Recognition, just recognition. That's what I have so far, Dan.
Right. Perfect.
What else have we covered that you can think of that I didn't write down in this list? I want to make sure I don't forget.
Let me see. Mostly on the talk show, we've talked about topical things that are ancillary.
Because I don't want to. I keep moving the goalpost around, and I want to stop doing that here pretty soon for at least level 1. And this is the appropriate workshop to do that with the GMs. What's that?
Oh, nothing. Just thinking aloud. But yeah, I can't really think of anything that couldn't be classified as just being a topical application of everything that's written here.
Okay.
So as far as I'm aware, it's pretty thorough.
All right.
What about the difference between theory, mind's eye versus battle map?
So accessibility considerations, basic accessibility. That's a critical one. Thank you. Just basic accessibility. That's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's called aphantasia. Yeah, because I try to teach all of you to make your table as inclusive and accessible as possible for different disabilities and such. So thank you. Yeah, that's a really important one, and that's what I say. I'm tired and I'm having trouble thinking of everything. What else is there? I'm trying to think. I don't know. Let it percolate as you guys think of things. We'll nail it down. I'm going to go and set up I think I already started it somewhere. I'm having trouble finding it. A checklist page that says for each one what your completion is. We got trainee, archetype specialist. Okay, GM1 trainee checklist. Okay, no thank you. So I've got a lot of it already on here. So no thank you evil is, and actually I have that one first because that's the easiest one. You don't have to do it in this order, but this is the recommended order. No thank you evil, Dragon Snot Falls, and 2 other adventures of choice. This is under, you have to be logged in, but on www.rpgresearch.com/staff/new volunteers, but you can click through, /volunteer training, and then all game master trainings. I've been formalizing the training process more and more, and Shane has offered to help write a training manual, because apparently he's written training manuals for companies professionally.
Nice.
That would really help. So we've got our PAS one through Valerie and Riley evolving, but this will be for the baseline one. But anyway, so D&D 5e lost mine. I got to fix that. It says Mines, a Phandelver beginner box set. There is a longer version, but we're just focusing on that. Adventures of Middle-earth, Eves of Mirkwood, or Tor the Marshbell. I am giving people the option to learn Tor instead. I would love for us to be offering Tor. I know you guys prefer the comfort of D20, but Brian Huseland is really good at Tor, and I really like Tor. Tor has better behavior modification. We had to bring over Tor stuff like Fellowship Focus into AIM to make the behavior modification better, which is a little weaker when we have to deal with certain populations. Tor has hero points in addition to shadow points. You only have inspiration, which you only get 1. Tor has cumulative hero points, which are kind of like story points in Doctor Who, because it's Cubicle 7, so you can spend them to fix things and such, which I don't like that part. I like the hero points. I don't like the ability to reroll. It's like this kid yesterday that Danielle was dealing with. He he wanted to cheat or re-roll everything because he didn't like the roll. And part of what the advantage of role-playing game is you get to deal with failure in a safe environment and deal with it. And this kid did not want to deal with it. And that's the problem I have with story points in any system that lets you do a re-roll or fudge the roll, is it doesn't make people as resilient as the people that, oh, that's what you got, now adapt, right? You failed at this task. What are you going to do now? Are you going to splat or are you going to bounce? And that's the only problem I have with systems that allow that, even though that's very popular right now. The Tor also is a non-grid combat system. It's a stance-based combat system, so it's more free-form that way. You don't have to be every little square and such. And it has a lot of nice stuff to it, and they have a lot more content than AIM has so far, because all of the AIM content is coming from Tor. Mm-hmm. So Tor is a good 7 years ahead of AIM on content. So I give people the choice. Most people are probably going to pick AIM, but they can choose either AIM or Tor. So if it's AIM, it's Eves of Mirkwood. If it's Tor, it's the Marsh Bell. Both of those you can do as a one-shot. Brian's going to, at some point here, be running that for you guys, so you can experience it, the Marsh Bell. Star Wars, pending approval now. I got to check on that. One introduction box set of choice: Age of Rebellion, Age of the Empire, Force and Destiny, or The Force Awakens. So you pick one of those. Any one of the following. Okay, so this is where I haven't nailed it down, because I was talking about superheroes, Doctor Who, Mystery Police, Wild West, even Twilight 2000. Anyway, so we've decided that is going to be superhero. We just got to nail down which superhero.
Yeah.
And then one full campaign, and it says in one of the above, it'll be Darkening of Mirkwood. So those are things I got to update. Overall GM table preparation, seating. You're, as a GM, unless you've got a facilitator to help you, you're responsible for how the seating arrangements are set up. Lighting, table, how you have the table all set up and ready to go. Character sheets ready. I'm paying attention when you guys have your character sheets handy and don't have them. Well, I space it, GM screen. No, thank you. Evil doesn't need a screen. Some of you don't like to use screens. With some of our at-risk populations, it's better to have a screen, and with others, it's not. So it's going to depend on the audience. I prefer that you use screens. It also helps with the little roster initiative tracking thing to have that. There's other ways to do it, but it's not a fail if you don't use a GM screen. It's just a preference. Rosters required. Turn tracking. We talked about that. Visual aids for aphantasia. So battle mat, whiteboard, miniatures, maps, photos. GM and player dice, GM and player pencils, GM graph paper, GM and player scratch paper, Post-its or other tool for note passing. So these are all things on the table preparation we go through on a checklist to make sure you're doing. We'll create a more formal checklist that you can do every time as we refine this. Soft skills, roster management, player engagement, player observable immersion levels of 5 or higher on the POIFs. That's the player observed immersion flow scale, something like that. I created it. I can't remember what it stands for anymore. But on the observed immersion scale, pending finding a better one that exists in print, which I haven't found a better scale yet. That's more observational. Everything else is more subjective feedback. I'm looking for observational. Participant post-game evaluation score of 90% or better. So the good thing is, at Spark, that's pretty easy, because it's all smiley faces, and most of the time it's all smiley faces. Mm-hmm. You only have to get that once for that particular game to sign off on that particular one. And if we don't have that being done, then it's the evaluator's discretion. Yeah, okay, you did a good job, like I saw her do yesterday. She was on. She nailed it. They were all happy, excited, and talking to them very quickly. They all wanted to do more. I'm calling that a 90% or better. So until we get a more formal thing on that, it's going to be based on either the hard feedback from Spark or whatever, or my evaluation. And it's going to include going through that checklist. Turn-taking management. This is a big one for all of you, especially in more chaotic environments, making sure, and Danielle struggled with this last week, that people are taking their turns when they need to. So using the talking stick or whatever. Don't use scissors. She gave him scissors last week.
Oh, jeez.
These are at-risk children. I don't remember. I don't think it was her idea. I think somebody else gave them to her. Don't use sharp objects as a talking stick, because sometimes they get frustrated and want to throw things. do not use heavy objects or sharp objects. I like to use the little egg timer, and preferably a shorter one, where actually you turn it now that's your time to hurry and talk, and then you got to move to the next person when your time's up. I need to get more of those at the right. I keep forgetting to get those. Let's see. Egg timers. Put that in my thing. Okay. Because that I think is the best talking thing, because it also limits how much time, keeps the flow going, especially for larger groups. Okay, I lost my page. Here we go. Equal player engagement. So I'm watching that you're not missing somebody who's being more of a wallflower and such, or others that are dominating the play. You need to keep that managed. That's where turn taking and all of that helps. But these are things I'm specifically checking you off on as a GM, that you're showing competence in that. Basic accessibility considerations, appropriate language, right? We keep it, family friendly. GM and player code of conduct, policies and procedures documents. I've got to actually get those, but like that minor document, things like that, you'll all have to have proficiency in handing those out. At Spark, it's knowing that everybody signs in on the sheet and that at the end they give their evaluations. Assessment tools. So I've got the POIFs one. It is the observed. And you can even as a GM do it. It's just harder to do because you're juggling everything else. So it's going to be based more on somebody observing you on your sign-off. Player archetype knowledge and management. GM archetype knowledge. Conflict resolution 1. Genre assessment tool. Format assessment tool. So these are different assessment tools. Complexity assessment tool. System assessment tool. Okay, so these are if you're putting together a new group. This will be especially useful for your campaign. Mm-hmm. And you want to gauge where your players are at starting out. Now, they may all be brand new, or they may be a mix, and you kind of need to know. And so, first of all, at level 1, the genre assessment tool tells you which game you should be running for this group. Maybe that's not known. They just want to do role-playing. They don't know what it is. You don't know if fantasy, sci-fi, superhero, or youth one is going to be the best one. You can do that formally and informally by just asking questions. Well, what do you like to read and watch? On TV or YouTube or whatever. What do you like to read if they read? Which feels like it's becoming a lost art for some. But that it can be as informal as that. But I do have a formal genre assessment tool that basically says the same question. It's just a quick questionnaire. Mm-hmm. Format assessment tool. So is this group best for sitting around the table? Or do you think they might be better for getting up and moving around, or maybe some hybrid of the two, like we do with No Thank You Evil with the Wiggle Bottoms, where they get up and move around and they do the bee dance and stuff like that to help them with the wiggle bottom energy. Or are they maybe because of disability or for other reasons, maybe electronic role-playing game might be a better fit for some reason. Or maybe a solo adventure book to start them out, like the new Cthulhu, which, by the way, I have in my queue. I need more money. It's in my budget. I probably have to wait till next month, but I got all of the new Cthulhu 7, the starter box and the two big intros in the queue for me to order as soon as I got some budget for it, probably next month. I wish we had a lot more of those. But assessing, maybe they're not ready to play in a group yet. Maybe have them run through the equivalent of the Frank Metzer Redbox 1983 solo to kind of prep them for the basic concepts, which is interaction. Or have them go through one of the other solo adventure modules and let them learn the basics on their own before you have them interact with other people. Maybe they're nervous about looking. I've heard display times. I'm afraid I'm going to look stupid in front of the other players who already know what they're doing because I don't know the system. Well, let's go through a solo adventure that walks you through learning the system, and then because you may not have time to do one-on-one, but you can say, here, go ahead and play this, and then you'll be prepped and ready. So format assessment can tell you all those potentially. Complexity assessment. What system is appropriate? Maybe, like we had these kids yesterday, that wanted to play D&D. They started No Thank You Evil. Now they want to play D&D. They could barely read the D&D descriptions. It was above that because they're 6 years old. Mm-hmm. Right? It was impressive. They were reading as much as they were. And then this other kid who was actually older, I think he was 9 or 10, the one who definitely at risk, he couldn't read it. It was above his level. sadly, and because he's playing video games, he's not reading. He's not in a home environment that promotes that. So knowing what complexity they can handle in a game system is really important. What you're going to throw at them. Maybe it'll be a layered approach. For example, if we do GURPS or something like that, if it ends up being the superhero one, you might start with GURPS Light because they don't like a heavy system. Or they might say, yeah, I like really technical rules with lots of detail. Well, then we might want to go full-blown GURPS or something else. So that's where the complexity assessment tool comes in handy. You guys are not going to be required to know how to administer these tests. You're just going to need to know how to read the results from them. Mm-hmm. So let me make a note of that. Assessment. Reading. Not admin.
At level 1, I assume.
Yeah, level 1, you'll need to be able to read the assessment tools. You don't need to admin the assessment tool. So I will give you, if we have time, we give a packet of whatever, the facilitator or whoever would give them a packet of paperwork to fill out, and then you need to be able to read the assessment tool in a way that, just so you're familiar with it. Oh, well, reading this, when they say this, we should probably go with sci-fi. Oh, reading this, we should probably go with a heavier system or a lighter system, whatever. Well, reading this, so that you're able to read the assessment tool, but you're not the one who has to administer and score and everything else. That can be level 2. Again, I'm trying not to overburden you guys at level 1, but still get you a good enough meat. So be basic familiarity with these assessment tools is important. A system assessment tools have got complexity, then specific system. Maybe they have a preference already. I like D20 based, or I like GURPS based, whatever. That might help change which direction you go with this particular group, depending on the feedback. Then setting assessment. I really love Middle Earth, or I really love Star Wars, right? They may know nothing about role-playing games and systems, but they love a particular setting. That will help you make a decision on which game to pick out of the ones out of your tool belt. Player type assessment. So this is, where are they on Bartle's taxonomy of player type or equivalent? Are you dealing with a bunch of murder hobos? So yesterday, this kid was only a murder hobo, and he wanted to be nothing but a murder hobo. He didn't want any of the in-between or build-up. He just wanted to be a murder hobo, period. Well, putting him with the other girl who was playing D&D would have probably been catastrophic. So John was running her separately with her mom, and then Danielle was running this kid separately. They wanted to sneak around and do stuff like that. They were not about the combat. They were about the exploration and everything. Putting the two of them together at that age and his level of issues would not have been a good game experience for either of them. But if he'd had another kid who was didn't have to be as intense, but was okay with going around just hack and slash, I think he would have had an even better time, right? I think it would, there just wasn't another kid there at that time. So having that player type assessment will help you with if you have multiple, maybe going, ooh, I don't want to pair these two up right now at an introductory level. Danielle, could you take this one? Something like that. That'll be really helpful to know that. Again, we often do not have the luxury of this, but for more regular groups and such, we do. I have a packet of paperwork. It's like 17 different documents. I give them a folder with their blank character sheet. They got to fill out all the paperwork on the left before they get to do their character. And when we did the Game of Thrones group, of course, we had to do the house building before they got to do their character. So it was like 2 sessions before they 2 session zeros before they even got to play. Luckily, gamers mostly, at least the older ones, don't mind filling out paperwork. Because what do you do when you play tabletop? At least tabletop role-playing gamers, what do you do to play the game? You fill out paperwork. When you're playing a game, you're filling out paperwork.
Taxes is as easy as a character sheet.
And then campaign/adventure assessment. So now that you get an idea of their player type and their setting and their complexity and system and format and genre, you can now evaluate which campaign or specific adventure is probably the best fit. And at this point, it might be just your evaluation, or it might be, well, okay, you guys like this or this, which would you prefer? You could just ask them that. But some sort of basic assessment there. So that's what I've got up on the website already to some degree, and then we're fine-tuning here. If you think of anything that I missed, please email, text, call, whatever. Just let me know, because I'm trying to lock this in. It won't be 100% locked in probably for a few more weeks, but I really want to get it say, this is all you have to worry about for GM Level 1, so that it doesn't feel like a moving goalpost all the time. It's getting more and more defined. It's less fuzzy than it was. And all of this, of course, works towards the certification thing as well. That's going through its current revision right now as well.
Yeah.
So anything you learn here will be directly applicable to there. Just that tends to be a little bit higher, a little tougher on the testing. So, yeah, let me know if you think of anything else that needs to be added to that. But I think that's a pretty good... I mean, you get through all that, you've earned your GM level 1, don't you think? And yet it's only level 1.
Yeah.
You'll be out of level 0. Because right now you're all level 0. And we haven't even gone through the whole advocate one. The main thing with the advocate one is just getting through course RPG 99, I think, pretty much covers the RPG advocate. That's the RPG.education course. I think getting through that's probably sufficient for our advocate number 1. Because all the info you need, it hits on everything. And pretty much just passing the RPG 99, I think, will pass you RPG Advocate 1. So it's a lot of material, but that's like, and then just you have to do a verbal part of it, of explaining it and doing a quick, I will quiz you under different circumstances. Again, not as a big audience, as trying to talk to people as an advocate for role-playing gaming, and I will play the role of different cynical, critical people and make sure that you've got it at your fingertips, because it doesn't matter how well you do on the test if you can't verbalize it effectively.
Yeah.
You're not being a good advocate. If you have an impairment or a reason that's a problem verbally, then we can do it online in chat or something like that. But you have to show that you synthesize the knowledge into a useful way to talk to others. And then that's it for the Advocate 1. Facilitator is helping the GM take care of all of these, setting everything up, arranging groups, advertising to get groups, right? How to, on Meetup or message boards or whatever, how to put a group together, making sure a group runs smoothly, making sure the environment is okay, etc. That's what the facilitator checks off. GM does that. If you don't have a facilitator, GM's got to do all of that anyway. But the facilitator takes a lot of that burden off the GM in the real world if you have the luxury of a facilitator. That's what the facilitator does. Just lightens the load of the GM so they can focus on doing the game and not all the other stuff that's necessary to create the environment for the game. So that's what that looks like. Of course, player archetype specialist, we know what that's like. There's a lot of observation of people's behavior and doing a lot of logging. And then, getting good idea of immersion, what's working and not working. And then being difficult players. And we need to get Riley doing that before we lose him. He's been doing plenty of observation. Now we need to start using him. But you guys have got to be running games in the bubble, or him come to the community settings. But you guys got to be running games for him to then stress you guys. Now again, you don't have to fix everything at level 1, but you've got to be able to identify if Riley is playing a certain archetype. You've got to be able to tell me, I think he was this archetype from the behaviors I saw, and then we'll talk about whether you successfully managed that or not. And it won't matter if you were successful or not at level 1, as long as you're able to correctly recognize. Level 2, you have to successfully manage it. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. Dan, we still have you here? In Brazil? I saw there was a flash on the screen. Oh, we lost him. Hello, we lost Dan. No, we lost Dan. Where'd he go? He lost his connection or something.
It's the quickening of Dan's. First we lost Danielle,
Yeah.
then we lost Dan.
Well, and you know that clock's an hour ahead.
This?
Yeah. This is 11, that's 12.
Okay.
That's off by an hour.
So it is 10. Well, 10:58.
10:58, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome back, Dan.
Oh, sorry about that. There was a minor outage here.
Understood.
So I'm impressed by just how thorough the little seems to me. I've just seen the checklist to a tab, and there's quite a bit of, I don't know, I'm just gushing about the level of detail on what we're graded on, the whole things that would be expected from a master of ceremonies in terms of organization and setting things up and being able to interact well with people. Yeah, sorry, just commenting. I don't really have anything that I remember from previous sessions that isn't here.
Okay. Well, and as I go through all the Patreon videos and such, and because I have to skim through and figure out what the subjects were as I create summaries, I'll watch for any that we covered in past videos that seem appropriate to which levels as I'm fleshing out, because you see I'm getting the other levels on the website as well fleshed out. Again, a lot of it's coming from the certification on the LLC side, but I'm trying to figure out in the volunteer setting what works and what doesn't work. And again, grooming you guys if you want to go on to the professional LLC side, that the training is relevant. So, is that a power cord to a laptop?
It's a power cord.
I think that's a laptop power cord. I think John left it. Okay. He borrows one of the laptops. Well, cool. I'm glad. Again, I want this to matter, whether it's the training diploma at RPG Research or the full-blown certification at RPG Therapeutics LLC. It should not be too easy, but it also should not be insurmountable. It is level 1, so we've got to balance it. And so I have a tendency to put too much in, and then I have to kind of back off. So whenever I wrote papers, I would write 20, 30-page papers for what would become a 3-page, 5-page essay. The teachers only wanted 3 to 5 pages. I wrote 20 to 30 pages, and then I had to pare it down to what was relevant. It's a combination of ADHD and overachiever, what have you. But it's because when I do the research, I just capture all the information. I always try to look at it from all the different angles, and then we have to parse what is relevant to this particular moment. And that's where I struggle, is getting that parsing down to that last little bit. But it does give me a really great holistic knowledge whenever I delve into any topic. I really look at all the different angles because I capture all of that. Like right now, I'm slowly starting to capture all of the prison ban stuff against gaming info. And so I'll have a lot more up-to-date snapshot in the coming months about that subject than I do currently. And again, that will get shared with everybody else, so that will help others. So that page will get updated from these notes here soon. And so looking at this list, so Dan in Brazil, we're planning on you running February 9th, Lost Mine of Phandelver for the first time as your baseline. You'll be doing it remotely with us as players, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Dan in Brazil, where are you at on running your games? Sorry, Dan in Spokane. I am tired. Dan in Spokane, where are you at on running your games so far? How do you feel about? Let's start with Lost Mine of Phandelver. How do you feel about competence and confidence in that one?
I'm pretty confident in it.
Okay. When was the last time you ran it in our setting, public setting?
It's been a while, but
okay. So we got to do a formal evaluation to check that off.
Yeah.
It sounds like you won't be able to do Fridays indefinitely, so you got to pick one of these Saturday, Sunday ones.
Yeah.
Do you know which works better for you on that?
I'm actually already voted Saturday.
Saturday is the best one for you? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then Eves of Mirkwood. AIM and Eves of Mirkwood.
I've run it once for you guys.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so you're ready to try it in one of these settings. It's you'll have to refresh and everything.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Evil.
I'm pretty. It doesn't feel like I need that much to really be comfortable.
So how well do you know Dragon Spout Falls? Because that's the mandatory first one.
Fairly well.
Okay, what are the other two that you know reasonably well enough to run?
I know the one with the not Carnival.
Okay. Refresh on 2 others.
Yeah. Refresh on 2 others.
You need to be able to run 3. You need to be able to run Dragonstop Falls and 2 others. I don't care what the other 2 others are, just as long as you get those 3. Because that's the longest we ever have a group run is 3 in a single session. Because they get too much wiggle bottom. Now remember, in the first one, there's the bee. When they talk about the bee describing things, we've added the bee dance. Are you familiar with that? We added that? So we added that a few months ago. So when they're talking about the direction, it mentions the bee dance. When they're meeting with Mr. B or Mrs. B or whatever, before they go, they give directions. Well, how do bees communicate in the real world?
Well, they tend to they do a specific pattern of shaking?
Yes.
Yeah.
They wiggle their bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Our GMs have to do that for No Thank You Evil, because if you can't loosen up, the kids won't loosen up.
Yeah.
So you have to, as you talk about getting up and doing the bee dance, you have to get up and demonstrate the bee dance. Mm-hmm. And when you're like, yeah, you need to fly 3 miles this way and then turn right and then do 3 miles this way, whatever, that's how they do directions. And you have to be able to get up and be silly that way, because it's usually little kids. But you can get the parents and stuff involved.
Yes.
It's a great way to loosen people up, and it gets them up being physical, because they're already getting a little squirmy because they haven't gotten too. You've done your characters, you've started the adventure, but they're not really doing exciting yet. This gets them up, gets some of that energy shaken off, so then they can focus now back on the actual adventure, and it's a fun thing. And we added that a month or two ago, and it's been a big hit. Mm-hmm. So that's required for Dragonsnot Falls.
Okay.
To get up and wiggle your bottom. For the wiggle bottoms. Just an FYI. It's just part of how this is going to work. So you have to overcome any anxiety that might cause.
I think the voicing has helped me with the general anxiety in terms of performance.
Good. And yeah, any chance with No Thank You Evil to get them to move around, it will always help you. You'll be able to game with them longer, to give them those little physical breaks that are still in the game, because it doesn't take them out of the game when you do it that way. Yeah. Versus, let's take a break because everybody's getting squirmy. Then they fall out of it. Mm-hmm. They don't take long to get back into it if they're young, but it's better just keep them there if you can. How are you on Star Wars? Not at all?
Not at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, of course, superheroes, nobody is, because we're still nailing that down. Not even me. I'm not even there yet. I ran the hero system umpteen whatever years ago it was that I ran it. It was the older version, the older 5th edition. And you can't get any of the new stuff. It's all out of print. So we had a huge collection there, and it's dead system, sadly, unless they do a new reprint or something.
Yeah, the only thing I know about, superheroes is just my entire background in superheroes.
Right, and I don't know. Comic books and superheroes were never really my thing. So that's part of why I got that deficit as well. Yeah. Then, of course, probably haven't even looked at Dark Kingdom Mirkwood yet.
No, not yet.
Okay.
I want to get competent with the Eves of Mirkwood.
Yes, one step at a time. Okay, so let's review your voices where you're at.
Okay.
So you remember your quick list and give the variables for each one, and then you'll be just one sentence or so should be sufficient. We're just going to do a quick run through of your voices.
Let me grab a book.
Sure, yeah, choose your adventure right there if you want, here on the table.
Sure, Secret of the Ninja.
Yeah. So remember the description and catchphrase, and then just go into it.
Authoritarian? That was pronounced properly.
That's okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Deep, paced, condescending, in control. But you... Yeah. You take off down the road, led by the samurai. Who tells you his name is Sashimi? Okay. He leads you through the abandoned village.
Okay.
Okay.
Next one.
Then there is Andrei, the Russian. A bit lower. He skips A's, D's. He tries to roll his R's. Your name is Andrei. Let's find another page.
Okay.
He points to where the castle is. You say, maybe we could find it ourselves. I doubt it, Nada replies. I'm sure there is many tricks, paths, and traps. It's not easy to track down a ninja.
Okay. Now, your pitch was not lower on that one.
It wasn't.
No, that was not a lower, at least compared to the one you said before, not lower at all.
Okay.
It was higher than your speaking voice. So, it's fine if that's what you want it to be, but it was the opposite of your description.
Okay, then higher voice.
Yeah, that's higher than your speaking voice. And you had a lot of fluctuation, which is fine, but in your description, your adjective is off.
Okay.
Because otherwise, it's down here. Andre is talking down here. You were talking up here. Andre was talking up here. And you're using a lot of dynamic range. So just be accurate with your variables.
Okay.
So.
Patois. That one I do know is lower.
Okay.
And slower.
Okay.
Very, tends to pick up pace when more engaged. There's some peculiar phrasing and pronunciations. For example, sometimes, there's tends to be something to a W at the end of Y. Like, hey boy, 2 more are coming on horseback. You knock one out of the saddle with a shuriken and a star-shaped throwing blade. And to the others, you toss a metal ring attached to the end of a long cord.
So the bottom end of your dynamic range is lower, but most of that's also higher. Both from the first voice and your normal talking voice. You come down to a lower, but your dynamics goes up and down, and you tend to spend more of the time above your low range than down in your low range. Okay. Do it again and notice as you do it.
Just as you finish this, you see that 2 more Yakuzai are coming. You must deal with them yourself somehow, since Nadia and Sashimi are still occupied with the ones on the ground.
Do you see that? How it's actually more up here than it's only at the end. That's okay. Yeah. It's just accurately identifying and describing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I love that character's name is Sashimi.
Sashimi.
Fresh fish. You're sashimi. I don't know if you're familiar with sushi versus sashimi.
I'm
So sushi usually comes with like rice or something like that. It's got the raw fish over rice or something like that. Sashimi is just the raw fish by itself. Little slices of raw fish that you just eat. And that's it. That's sashimi. Sliced raw fish. I love that character, sashimi. All right, next one.
Okay. I've got Iggy and Igor.
Okay.
Iggy has the throat bubble.
Okay.
That one is most definitely higher.
Yep.
I'm actually thinking about using him primarily for small demons and imps and whatnot.
Okay. Yeah, good imp voice, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
You fall back asleep, but in the middle of the night you wake up again, and, without thinking, walk out of your room and down the hall.
So be very careful with that one. Sometimes your bubble gets so pronounced it's hard to understand you. And so you were in and out of understandability. So just be careful. Try to know. It's hard to tell in your own head, especially on a throat bubble. But just really, that one you're going to want to enunciate a little more to make it understandable. So keep doing it, but just really make it extra clear because it's a little hard. It's great. It's just work on the enunciation to compensate.
Okay.
The door you want is locked. But suddenly, you're on the other side of it.
Good. That works. Okay, next one.
Igor.
Yes, master. Long, drawn out.
Gravelly.
Somewhat.
Yeah. Where'd Iggy go back?
A.K.A. Smeagol and Gollum.
Yes. Unlike the authoritarian, very submissive, but can be underhanded.
Okay.
Yeah.
You rise. Yes, master. You hesitate. But in a rush, your purpose returns, and you bring the sword down. The moment of hesitation is just enough for Nada's eyes to fly open. Seeing the sword, she reacts instantaneously with a forearm deflection that blocks your sword arm, your sword hand.
All right. Previous incarnations of that were a little more dynamic.
Yeah, I know
that
this.
one's a little flat. You want to try it again with a little more?
I'm gonna try a different.
Okay. Page, yeah.
It was also the submissive part.
Yes, master. But it's attacking us, sir. You object? Most attacks are best fended off with understanding, master.
Much
Violence breeds more violence.
better. Yeah, much better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just had to put a little more effort into that one.
And adding more that he would interject with it.
Yeah.
Yes, master.
Yeah, you got it. All right, next one.
Then there was Twitchy.
Yes.
That's the one that you had me make up.
Okay.
He is much higher pitched,
Mm-hmm.
faster,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm using the twitching to help slow myself down so that I can still be fast and think about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And catchphrase?
Forget if I even had a catchphrase for him.
You need one.
Yeah, I mean.
It can even be simple as, "Hi, I'm Twitchy." You know, I mean, it can be something that simple as long as it works for you.
Not grass, the Viola, in both cases, you just stand by her side. If that's the way you want it. The captain says the crew of the freighter lowers a lifeboat into the water. You nada. In the Viola case, follow the crew. The crew gives you water and the week supply of food sticks, and wish for luck.
Okay. Keep working on it. Get yourself a catchphrase.
Yes.
That'll help you on that. Was that it so far?
Yeah.
Okay.
Although I was, when we were testing some of the others, I was testing out, seeing what other ones I could do.
Great, and I want you to consider those, but the next one I'm going to give you is I'd like you to come up with your GM narrator voice that you're going to use whenever you're reading narration. That needs to be something distinctive from your normal friendly voice. So whatever your normal friendly voice is in normal conversation when you're being friendly to people, that's one voice. The other one is when you're reading a narration, and usually in a dramatic way, right? Remember I talked about keeping your narrative energy up as the game goes on. People tend to sag down. Keep that energy up. So what is your GM narrator voice? Think about it. Don't answer it yet. Practice. So next week, you have your friendly voice, your normal conversational voice when you're being friendly to somebody. And so you need to be able to show me that. Your normal GM, when you're talking to kids and stuff and being friendly, you're going out of your way to be friendly, but you're just talking about stuff, you're explaining rules, whatever, but you're being friendly. Versus you're reading a narration from the adventure to set the dramatic presence and the atmosphere of what's going on here. There's lots of different styles. I will not dictate to you what your GM narrator voice is, but you need to solidify that. So those are, one doesn't really count as a separate voice. It's just recognizing it, which is your friendly voice. But you'll need to be able to do it. You'll be able to demonstrate that to me how you would talk to kids. And then the other one is the narrator voice. Okay? So work on those. Dan in Brazil, so you still need to work on finding resources for the Cowboy Western voice. Let's go ahead and run through your other ones as a refresher. Thank you, Dan.
Right. So the first one is probably my favorite one, is Egg, the gnomish trickster. He has the highest pitch I can get, a slightly higher rate of speech, slightly more dynamic, but I didn't put it in just to leave it flexible. Not much effect. Slightly higher volume, clear timbre, I think was the pronunciation.
Yeah, it's pronounced timbre. It's spelled timbre, but it's pronounced timbre. Wacky English.
And his catchphrase is, "My, you're a tall one, aren't you?" So, if I am to read something in his voice, let me get right here. Bounty hunter. Vicious paracritter on the loose. Escaped murderer on the run. Rebellious daughter run up with a ganger again. Very hard as the guy to call. The ultimate stalker. He lives for the thrill of the chase. The thought of pitting his skills and his customized toys against the instincts of a dangerous animal or criminal is what makes him happy to get up in the morning.
Okay, good. We're only doing short run through on this, so that's good. So next one, just keep it to about a sentence or two. We don't need to do full paragraphs anymore for the run through.
Right.
No problem.
The swift scavenger, timid, slight pause, slightly higher pitch, slightly lower than the gnomish trickster, lower rate of speech. And his characteristic is that he has a bit of a timid nervousness around him. In Star Trek, he prefers the company of droids over actual people. And his favorite way of actually conversing with people is through trade. Otherwise, he doesn't quite open up as much. So, get this. Trade? Trade friend? Slightly breathier voice.
Okay.
So, on the cover of specialist is doing his best work. You've never seen a master of infiltration and espionage he is. Yes, yes.
Good. All right. Next one.
Next one is Edgar, the knight. Firm, beautiful, slightly lower pitch, bit flatter, stoic, and a slight timbre to his voice. Catchphrases, a bit of the finest. Perhaps, just a word to get me focused on it.
Mm-hmm.
The drone rigger loves to be elbows deep in his latest project, tweaking and adjusting it until it runs 10 times better than another did straight out the box.
Okay. Good. Next one.
Sullivan, the noble, sarcastic, slightly nasally voice with a bit more pause, slight pitch increase. Rate of speech is very dynamic, depending on circumstance. Certainly. When you need legs broken, outlets rearranged, or just a little short pause if you meet somebody that you mean business, giving full rapport.
Okay. Good. Next.
Carper, the French voice, polite, sense of being withful, like ARRPG. Never hurts to ask. Living in the shadows isn't all about big guns, major mojo, and dancing the electron two-step.
Okay, a little more. It sounds like you're still trying to find that voice, so keep going.
Yeah, my biggest problem with his accent. May I read a little bit more?
Please. Yes, keep going.
Sometimes a more personal approach is needed, and that's where the face comes in. As the public persona of the channel-running team, he uses his charm and charisma to negotiate with Monsieur Johnson.
Okay, you got a little better. Keep working on that. Maybe check out Inspector Poirot. He has kind of
my family loves it.
yeah, he's over the top French accent that might help you.
Right, excellent.
Yeah.
Still have two left aside from the cowboy.
Good.
There's the attempt to the Germanic voice with a slight moderate timbre. Let me see here. Many adepts channel their magical abilities towards honing their bodies into lethal and arm-killing machines. But a gunslinger adept has a different approach. With her uncanny ability to wield firearms of all types, she leans more towards gun fu than kung fu. That doesn't sound right.
Try that again.
Right. Let me just try to get the characters.
Yep.
We'll see. Manding adepts channel their magical abilities towards holding their bodies into lethal and killing machines. But a gunslinger adept has a different approach. With an uncanny ability to beat fire out of all types, killing more towards gun fu than kung fu, as it were.
Okay. Good. And one more?
One more. Go back the pro thug, which is my deepest voice and the trying to be the flattest but slower rate of speech. Let me see something here. I've seen the blood under the bridge. This substitution only applies for matrix actions or for targets entirely in the matrix. Interacting with a device would employ attributes normally, but using a device to interact with a node or icon would require that a program or a matrix attribute be used instead.
So how is that different from the previous one?
That's the million-dollar question now, isn't it?
Yeah, you definitely need to separate the distinctiveness between those two.
Is a troll. I'm trying to be as gravelly and as low pitch as I can.
So let's go back to the previous one and let's hear that again.
Right. Oh, yeah. I have a problem with deep voices, I figure.
No worries.
Perhaps. This substitution only applies for matrix actions
Okay.
targets entirely with the matrix.
All right, I hear the difference. Yeah, I hear the difference now. Okay, that's fine. I'm tired, and so my powers of observation were a little slow. I hear the difference. That's okay. That's fine.
It's more slighter difference than I would have hoped.
It's enough. They're noticeably different. They're noticeably different characters, so you're okay. I just missed it before, so going back made it clear.
Right.
Cool.
I think I'm gonna try my hand at the cowboy voice again.
Okay, go for it.
Right. Oh dear, that's so strange. Okay, we're not starting well. Howdy, partner.
There you go.
Perception. Perception within the matrix is important. Here we go, Australian again.
Yep. Australian's just British cowboy, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that counts, but as Gimli would say, that still only counts as one.
So give it another shot, so to speak.
Let me try to get warmed up.
Yes.
Howdy, partner. That's built-in cowboy shouldn't I see there? How's that?
Yeah, it keeps going into Australian.
I need to study. There's no way.
Yeah, so definitely check out Gunsmoke, Rawhide, and John Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
Just Google those clips and pick different. And each of them has many different characters. You know, some of you pick one that's like really over the top. The over the top ones are easier to impersonate than the more subtle ones.
Right, I have here to study Gunsmoke, Rawhide, Clint Eastwood,
Yep.
and John Wayne
Yep.
for a more particular style.
Yeah, look for different ones. John Wayne. So Clint Eastwood has he's clenched teeth and he's, it's like, you feeling lucky, punk? Yeah, you feeling lucky? So he's got that very distinctive Clint Eastwood style versus, John Wayne's going to more, let's see, all right, Pilgrim, let's move them on out. And so, but they're distinctively more John Wayne and Clint Eastwood, and you don't really want to do that because then you get criticized on trying to impersonate a specific person. What you want is the characters that they're interacting in their shows Because you got like Pappy over here, and he's always down fighting the well, and over to my mind, and going on over here. You're going to look for those, the supporting characters that are over the top, that are going to give you a really distinctive one that you can impersonate and play with. You're like, you don't look like you're from around town here now, do you? There's not enough room in this town for two of us, so see you at noon or get on out of here. So lots of those things should help you. Just find one that is distinctive that you can do fairly comfortably out of all the characters you're going to see between those clips. Gunsmoke, there was a sidekick who was really over the top. I forget his name right now, but he was very, very over the top. So that should help you find one that you'll be able to click with and listen to things that they say that you can use as their catchphrase, right? That's distinctive to that particular one. So, cool. All right. Well, I think unless there's anything else you guys wanted to cover, I think we've covered a lot. I'm going to be working, I've got between now and 1 for the Tolkien Society broadcast. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming none of you are joining that.
I've got other things I got to do today.
That's fine. So I'm going to try to get these updated on the website that we just went over before I move on to the next thing. And then I'm going to work on the program plan for Tuesdays at the Spokane Public Schools Eagle Peak School. So thank you very much. I hope you guys once again found that useful and constructive. Mm-hmm. We're getting things more solidified.
Yes.
Nailed down. As I said, Shane has offered to help turn all these scattered notes and ideas and pages into an actual manual. Mm-hmm. Apparently he's professionally helped organizations write training manuals before.
Nice.
I welcome his help. Anything that I could let somebody else hand off so I can focus on my main area, great. He needs to be careful what he offers, because I'm like, okay, yeah, great, here you go.
Yeah.
Got to keep him down. But he's been really excited about his energy coming out. And we just got paperwork back on Solomon, who is our sysadmin trainee. So he's filled out his paperwork finally. So I already went through the interview and everything else, and we sent him the packet. And I haven't heard from him for a while, so I was worried we were losing him, and I got confirmation. No, he's still working on it. I'm not letting him work on the servers for a while till he gets practice on a virtual environment first, so he doesn't blow up our servers that I've worked so hard to get going.
Yeah.
But I'm really looking forward to when he's trained up enough that I can say, hey, Solomon, go take care of that user account for Dan, or hey, can you go run that batch process, or things like that. He won't be doing the copy editing. We've got different people hiring for the copy work, which I'll be really glad when I can hand that off. In the works, we have people who are onboarding. As I said, this week we added number 49 with Trent. Mm-hmm. So next week we should hit 50. We've got several good candidates that if all goes well, they'll onboard, and within a week or so. So before January's out, we'll have hit 50, which we weren't supposed to hit till summer.
Yeah.
So
nice.
We're, as far as manpower, again, donations pretty slow, but manpower we're doing great. And that's 90% of what we need anyway. Most of what we do is all labor intensive anyway. Mm-hmm. Any comments, questions on what we just went through these workshops? Feedback?
No, I think we're doing a good job of hashing a lot of things out.
Okay. And this was useful to you as a GM workshop, getting a clearer picture of what's expected. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I figured it was, because it was specific to the GMs, that this is worth, even though it's administrative, it's worth hashing out to know exactly what your expectations are.
Yeah, it's getting me closer to where I want to be.
Yep. Dan in Brazil, any comments, questions, feedback?
I'm really enjoying it because I actually was going to try to ask about what specific next steps I will need. So the GM1 trainee checklist is a godsend. And I'm very happy with it. It's very specific and it looks very professional. A bit intimidating, but that's the point. I need to get better.
Yeah. Well, how do you eat an elephant?
Sorry?
How do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
I didn't know these expressions.
That's okay. You will learn them from me. You will hear me say them many times. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You don't try to eat the whole elephant in one giant bite. You take little nibbles and slowly eat away at it.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with this. It looks like a big elephant. Just nibble away at it a bit at a time. So another one you'll hear me say, because I'll often just say the punchline. So if one person calls you a horse, you can ignore them. 2 people call you a horse, you might start to wonder. 3 different people call you a horse, buy a saddle. Now, that is, of course, not always true, but there are times it is. It is especially useful with teenagers and like with my boys, where they've got 3 different people telling them what they should be doing, what they know they should be doing, but they're not doing. And so I'm able to just say to them, buy a saddle. So you will hear me say that. If you're getting input from 3 different people, and they're all kind of saying the same thing, but you're kind of resistant to it, you'll hear me say, buy a saddle to somebody. So that you'll know what that phrase is. I got a million of them.
I hadn't heard the buy the saddle one.
You haven't?
No, I haven't.
Oh, wow. What's that?
I'm going to stop the list and I'm going to steal them all.
You are welcome to. They're public domain. Because I took them from wherever I took them from. I didn't make them up. So, every now and then I make something up original, but most part everything's derivative.
Don't take mine, though. I charge royalties.
Yeah. What was that, Dan in Brazil?
Well, aren't you cheeky? I was going to steal them, but then you said it's public domain, making it so that my exercise as a masterpiece is literally impossible. Right? I can't steal what doesn't belong to basically everyone.
How do you steal public domain?
Ask Disney.
Oh!
That's how you do it.
Yeah, you get the laws to be rewritten. Oh, man. And it's because of Disney that Tolkien's still not public domain, too. Because when they renewed Mickey Mouse in the 90s, they doubled it from 35 years to 75 years. Oh, man. And they're just going to do it again.
Also, what you do is you take a public domain story.
Yeah.
And you make it so that
butcher
only
it.
people know your story.
Yeah, Snow White and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was why Tolkien hated Disney. Walt Disney.
Yeah.
Tolkien was vociferous about how much he disliked. When he was talking about having movies made of his stuff, he says, that's fine, I can do with animation as long as it's nothing like Disney.
Yeah.
Tolkien was vociferous, because I've got Tolkien Society coming up. We read through his letters and everything. Oh my goodness, he had it in for both the company and the individual.
And, considering my background is animation, I understand. A lot of people have this mentality of what Walt was. No.
Okay.
No, he was ruthless.
Oh, yeah, no, of course. Well, he was creating an industry. And it takes, it's like Ford, Henry Ford, too, was this whole other persona. He was not a nice guy. And he had this vision, and he took us to a whole other level. He, the whole assembly line thing, took it to a whole other level. And he was ruthless, and he was control freak, and all sorts of flawed issues. But he was fundamental to... I don't know if any of you are petrol heads / gearheads. Grand Tour. So it was Top Gear, and then they spun off to their own Amazon series, Grand Tour. They're now in their 3rd season. It just came out yesterday. Actually, I think it came out, yesterday. So I was watching it between working on server stuff. And the first episode of season 3, and I don't know if you've watched any of their shows.
I've seen it.
They're a bunch of hooligans. The 3 of them are hilarious.
Yeah.
Right? It is a car show, and they do some specs and stuff, but what makes them different from all the others is they're doing pranks, and they're children.
I kind of prefer the
they're 60-year-old.
version.
These are the British ones.
Okay,
That's what we're talking about. Is the original James May, et cetera, et cetera. They are 60-year-old juveniles.
Yeah.
And they get to drive some awesome freaking multi-million-dollar cars or what have you, and others. So the first episode was in Detroit. And the abandoned dead city of Detroit. So in the 1950s, 60s, they claim, I haven't looked it up, but they're claiming it was the wealthiest city of the United States. And now, of course, it's the poorest. It's completely imploded. And so entire swaths are just abandoned. So they got 3 of the latest muscle cars from Ford, Chevy, and Dodge. Oh. So the Mustang one is light on the horsepower, but the best handling one. The other 2 had 1,000 horsepower each. Yeah, one was the Dodge Challenger Devil or Diablo, and then the other one was the Chevy Exorcist. So it was the Devil
Devil and the
versus the Exorcist. Yeah. I think that's intentional.
Yeah.
Both 1,000 horsepower. And so then they did straight runs, and then they did it through an old abandoned factory, and then they did a noise test, just making raw noise, doing donuts. I was just like, oh yeah, because I used to be a mechanic, and I did engine performance, and I did muscle cars and restorations, and oh yeah, I got a lead foot that I have reformed, but it's always there wanting to go. I have 400 horsepower and Infinity and stuff, and yeah. Anyway, totally off topic, but
it's awesome.
yeah. but the point I was trying to bring it in was with Disney, how he was creating a whole new industry. It takes it takes a highly flawed person to have that level of focus to change things like that. Same thing with Ford. Before that, it was all small, elite, hand-built cars, mostly electric, and everything was hand-built, not assembly line. Incredibly expensive relative to only the wealthy elite could afford them. He was trying to make it available to the masses. And so economies of scale. It took a really driven person. They sued him for 9 years. So this, I've always, when I did my Tech Talk with Hawke talk show about the impact of technology on privacy, security, and civil rights, which I did for years through KYRS and through NEKID radio out of Santiago, Brazil, and such. Chile. Sorry, Santiago, Chile. I made this comparison. So the MPAA and the RIA, which I've been boycotting since about 2000, because they sue little old ladies, dead people, and parents of children and all of that. So I don't go to new movies. I only go to independent films, or I buy used films, things like that. Music I do support my independent artists, things like that. Anyway, when I was making comparison, so the MPAA and RIA have to sue people all the time. And part of that is because they're so resistant to change. They're still back in the 1950s, and they're so slow to adapt. The same thing happened in the automotive industry. Prior to Ford, you had all these elite, expensive, hand-built, basically, like you have the high-end cars of today where they're $1 million, $2 million. That was the equivalent. Imagine that was the only kind of cars available on the market. We would not be driving cars, right? It would be a very different world. Ford wanted to make it more accessible to everybody. And they sued him for over 9 years for copyright, trademark, patent infringement, everything they could throw at him. They said because he didn't have a license from them, from the American Automotive Association, AAA. Not the same AAA that we have today. But the AAA back then was this cartel of car manufacturers who said, you need to buy a license from us to create a car. And the license would make it so affordable that people couldn't afford the cars. Same exact thing with the music industry. Music and everything, until the breakout that's really happened in more recent years. But, their resistance to it, making everybody pay licenses for everything, identical. And 9 years of legal battles, millions of dollars back then, millions of dollars fighting the battles, trying to stay in business while these guys were trying to put in, and they're all gone. They went the way of the buggy whip. So same thing with Disney. What he was doing was so different than what others were accepting of at the time. It takes a heavily flawed, driven individual to push through. And I still would prefer the old Disney over what Disney has become. What Disney's become in the last 50 years with the caretakers and such is sickening to me compared to what it was.
Currently, what a lot of the caretakers are very much close to what Disney was.
As an individual, but not as a company. So Walt Disney was his own mogul. That's the word I'm looking for. He was a business mogul, whatever. But the Disney company balanced him out until he was no longer in the picture. There stopped being the need, whatever. All these other people come in, and it's like there's a whole bunch of them. It's completely, it's very sad. Most of the Disney content I don't watch. So, and I have not been happy with most of the Star Wars stuff since then, and other, Anyway, it is what it is. We're way off topic. I gotta let you guys go.
Yeah.
I gotta get ready for Tolkien Society professionally. Get these notes on there. Part of the tangent. Get to know a little more personal stuff, but oh well, more than you wanted to know. Thank you guys very much. What's that, Dan in Brazil?
No, I'm just saying that I loved it. Tangent,
Good.
everything. It was topic on the way.
Okay.
I do have a few questions, but you might be busy, so
Shoot.
I'm not sure if you'll be.
Do you want to do it off air or on air?
Your preference, really.
Okay, well, I can do it on air because we still have a few minutes technically in the show. But Dan, you can take off a little Spokane Dan if you want, or you can hang out.
Listen.
Okay, go ahead, Dan in Brazil.
You spoke of Ford and Disney as personalities, flawed personalities, which were needed in order to kickstart the industry. And in a way, RPG research is an initiative that is trying to kickstart a new industry.
He caught that.
Professional standards. So my question is, when do we get our dark side points?
Yeah, you caught that. I was afraid somebody might say that. It's totally in the back of my head that somebody might say that because I am also a very heavily flawed individual. Maybe not to the degree they were, but I'm heavily flawed and driven.
Well, question.
Yes.
Have you made any donations to the Nazi Party?
No.
Then you're not nearly as flawed as them.
Okay. Well, that's also a different time period and everything too. But I have made donations to organizations that you would probably feel almost as bad.
The Nazis are pretty bad.
No, I agree. That's a whole. That's. But I'm a dichotomist. So I've donated and supported Electronic Frontier Foundation, and I've supported the NRA, for example. They are not in the same category as far as things like that go.
Yeah.
I supported a whole spectrum of different areas, and so it would be pretty easy to pick areas to pick on me if you ignore all the other areas that are on the other end of the spectrum of different belief and political and ideology and all of that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's my heavy flaws. That's just difference of opinion. I know in this day and age, having a difference of opinion is a flaw, but that I don't consider it that. I have a lot of other flaws and challenges that I deal with, between ADHD and other things, and there are a lot of challenges there. But yeah, no, because we're trying to create an industry here of professionalism in role-playing gaming that's different than just because up till now, RPG professionalism is writing the modules and publishing. And that was pretty much it. And then you got the convention stuff. But that was pretty much the bailiwick of RPG professionals. I've been a paid game master since the early 80s, on and off. People paid me since I was 13. I was 13. The youngest player was 17. Everybody else was college up to their 50s. They were paying me at 13 to GM them. So I know I've had a little bit different experience than a lot of other people that way. And I between my hyperactivity and other, tendencies to just be very driven, I understand that this is not the same balance than other people. But it's kind of what it takes to shape and mold things. When I did the whole SiliconValley.com thing, I was around tons of people like that, and I loved it. The best place before California was destroyed like it is now, during the 90s and early 2000s when I was there, it was the only place on earth where I felt like I was among my kindred. Everywhere else I've been like, well, I can relate to these people in this area, motorcycles, role-playing, whatever. But that was the only place where I went, yes, this is what I always felt like I was dragging everybody up to the present. I felt like everybody else was 2 to 10 to 15, 20 years behind, whether I was in Utah or whatever, other states. And other parts of California felt like they were behind, but Silicon Valley at the time, most of them have left since. But when I was there, it was awesome. And I didn't have to explain why these things. It's like, yeah, that's great. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. And it's like, yes, great. You understand. You get it. And everywhere else, I have to explain every little thing for people to finally come around and get it. And that can be exhausting.
Yes.
But, yeah. But hopefully, I don't put myself in the same league as those guys at all, but I was wondering if somebody would make that equation that, we're trying to build a whole new industry here and kind of have to do really driven and different stuff than the other people. And I was, as I was saying that, I was consciously aware, I hope nobody points out that make that kind of analogy.
Well, I mean,
but my motto is patience and love. So my mantra.
And people have made industries, various industries before, and it does require a certain mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not too familiar with some of the things that was going on with Ford.
Mandatory living quarters and everything in his industrial city and everything. You had everything. So like Google Campus, imagine you're not allowed to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Google Campus tries to provide everything for you so you don't have to leave, but you're allowed to leave. Mm-hmm. He was trying to make it so nobody left. He had this vision of this mechanical, industrial world where you never had to leave your neighborhood. Everything was there, but it was all mechanical. And the more he achieved it, the more he rebuilt his old idealistic version of his old town that he grew up from in the 1800s that was anti-mechanical, right? The more he achieved his vision, the more he fled away from it, spent less and less time in it, which a lot of the Orwellian stuff, dark and cold and mechanical and unfeeling, and you check it out. There's a pretty good documentary on PBS going around right now too. I think that I've been aware of this for years, but they put together a pretty nice one that summarizes a lot in an hour about the intricacies of Ford. Yeah, without really the automotive, we're talking about the person and the impact on an entire culture.
What is it? Not Tesla.
Edison. Oh, okay, yeah. Edison's a whole other.
Another.
Yeah, and he stole. Oh, he stole a lot.
Yeah, I mean, he's credited for a lot of inventions, but more like he filed them.
Right. Well, and we've talked about that before. I don't know if you were here for that. That's the problem with patents is even if you created it first, if somebody else patents it, you can end up having to pay them.
Yeah.
Unless you can prove prior art, which means they still get the patent, but you might be excluded from the license. You can't prove prior art. You may have had to pay a fee for something you invented first.
Yeah.
And that worries me about a lot of stuff we're doing. I can't afford to patent some of the things we're doing. And I worry that some larger organization will scoop that up. So for example, we were talking on the talk show Thursday, IBM patented in 2006 or 7 choose your own adventure style branching movies, which I figured would have been patented decades ago. But yeah, John was looking up the actual patent number ring that IBM patented that. And then because we were talking about the current Netflix, the lawsuit from ChooseCo against Netflix because the Choose Your Own Adventure, the Bandersnatch Choose Your Own Adventure movie. You familiar with that?
No, but
it's a Choose Your Own Adventure movie.
Yeah.
It's dark. It involves death of a child, suicide, things like that as possible outcomes. And apparently, according to the lawsuit, ChooseCo 2 years before had been negotiating a license to do a movie like this with their product, and then Netflix backed out and then went ahead and did it anyway. So they're talking brand dilution, trademark infringement, all these things. But the movie, the flow is really good. Like you have a certain limit of time to make a selection or it defaults, and it doesn't jump as it switches from choice to choice. It's very smoothly done. So the image, the movie quality of it's pretty good. Whether you like the story outcome, all that's another discussion. But it's dark, and apparently they've been getting a lot of phone calls and angry letters, thinking that this movie is ChooseCo. So it's created that brand confusion, which is what trademarks are so critical. And they're kid oriented, and this involves death of a child and suicide and stuff like that, and people are in uproar. It's all over. It's doing the talk show thing for weeks now. So they're in, I think it's a $25 million lawsuit ChooseCo filed against Netflix. If Netflix ripped them off, really did do the sit down, and then went ahead and did it anyway because they didn't want to pay them, then Netflix deserves it. If ChooseCo's making it up, well, then ChooseCo's probably going to go out of business. Which they were a reboot anyway. They were recreated in the early 2000s to republish all the Choose Your Own Adventures that had lapsed. So that'll be interesting. So that is all interrelated. The IBM thing, this thing, they're all interconnected. And that patent, so that's a problem because I had been working on back in the 90s trying to do that I had a VHS camcorder. And I was trying to create branching movie outcomes for a movie I was working on called AI, which later they had, what's his name did AI, Steven Spielberg. in that kit I had. So mine was about an artificial intelligence robot that was being worked on, and there were terrorists involved. It's a totally different storyline. And I shot a few scenes. I shot it out the Salt Lake Flats and some other interior shots, and did some news shots. And it's really bad and amateurish, but I still have the footage. Keep wanting to digitize it someday, just for the heck of it. But it also was, I was working on trying to have branching different outcomes that the audience could choose and have happen. And as the digital technology was getting better, I figured that was going to be pretty easy. Plus, in our therapeutic programs, I've been engaged by more than one company, but one company in particular out of Texas, who wanted us to develop for the tablet an interactive role-playing game, and the 3D version was too expensive. Mm-hmm. And there's a weird thing happening in development, in software development in the last 5+ years, that developers want to retain the rights of all of the code rather than it being handed over to the client, which is wackadoodle, in my viewpoint, as somebody who's been involved with tech since the 70s. Like, you're writing code for a client, you hand it over to them. Yeah. It's like if you're a ghostwriter for a book and you didn't negotiate any rights to it, they get full credit, you got your base pay, and you're done. You don't get anything else. When you're writing code on a contract, no, there's been this big pushback. So she was going around to multiple game companies. Not one of them will let her fully retain her rights to her intellectual property. She would have to give anywhere from 30 to 60 to 70% of the rights over of the profit for it. I'm like, that's wackadoodle. Like, go talk to some companies in India. They're hungry enough. And she used to be VP at Mattel and was in charge of the He-Man and Barbie products back in the 80s and 90s. She helped make them big. So she wanted me to help put together for drug rehab interactive role-playing game to help with teenagers and such with drug rehab. And so we were getting nowhere with the animation thing. They wanted way too much money, and she was just trying to get some prototypes. So I was talking to Zoe and such, and they were open to it. She then fell and had a really bad injury and has been out of it. But we were going to do a movie-based version through the tablet, use like the Zoe folks with their high production quality. Well, it turns out Matt Vansel has already written for a video game that did that branching thing years ago. So he and Ben already had experience doing that. And it may still happen, but now if IBM's got that patent, we can't do it in a pure movie format. We can do it in a role-playing game format, but if we wanted to do a movie one like that, that's problematic because IBM licensing is probably outrageous. Mm-hmm. And we like stuff to be accessible. Anyway, this is all related to role-playing gaming. Yeah. And it's why you have to be aware of all these things going on in the industry and all the legal issues. And so, but that is why, jokingly, John said I should go and do it. I did it last year, and I bought the domain rpgmegacorp.com. If you go to it, let's see where, I think it goes to RPG Organization, which is us.
I don't think Mega is big enough. We need to go to Giga.
Yep, RPG Megacorp. Or Infinicorp or something, I don't know. But without maybe making it into a role-playing game version of Monopoly or something like that.
Oh, no, there's...
Just that you're out there just trying to dominate, corporate world and such as a role-playing game. I mean, or you could just have Eve Online. That's pretty much the same thing in space. But if you go to RPG Megacorp, there's a list of domains. Actually, if you redirects to RPG Organization, I've got over 260 domains, and about a quarter of them are role-playing related. So it might not be such a joke down the road. Who knows?
I just had a thought of if EVE Online was made a whole lot earlier, Ford, Disney, and Edison trying to play EVE Online.
Yeah, well, the Russians were owning that for years there, so I don't think it'd be that different. Yeah. Anyway, Dan, any other comments, questions? We went all over the place with that.
Just one comment. You said you were a gearhead and that you like these kind of mechanical things. And if so, I have an RPG recommendation for you. Though, of course, it's a rather weird RPG, all things considered. Have you ever heard of Battletech?
Of course. I played a bunch of it back in the 80s. And I have Robotech and MechWarrior. I liked the role-playing adaptation of it. I'm not a big war gamer. So that's why I like Robotech and MechWarrior role-playing games more. The role-playing game version's fine. I'm not a board gamer, war gamer. I don't care for that. I'll tell you how much of a gearhead, petrol head, I was a 4 times ASC certified mechanic, so Automotive Service Excellence certified. I was teacher at the American Automotive Institute, which was also Dodge Certification Center, and taught at other junior colleges as well. Yeah, I was a mechanic for a living for about 10 years, both working for companies and independently. And I specialized back in the 80s and 90s in computer systems, electrical systems, and engine performance, because especially the electrical and emissions and computer systems, none of the other mechanics want to touch. To this day, they don't like it. Most mechanics do not like dealing with electrical at all. And so I was always the guest speaker at other colleges to come in and do the lecture on electrical theory and everything, and then the application of it in the shop, because none of the other teachers knew it or wanted to deal with it. And so when mechanics around me were making 20 an hour, I was making 60 an hour plus at the time, and for comparable skill set and a lot younger than the rest of them. So I did quite well in that industry, and was really, and again, my love was performance, muscle cars, restoring. I've had 2 67 Mustangs, 71 Camaro, a 68 Dodge Coronet, 74 Charger, which is the last of the big ones. Then the others were boats, but still they're pretty. 73 LTD Police Interceptor with a 429 Interceptor engine, a 72 Galaxy 500 with a 400, which from 0 to 90 they both were the same speed, and then after that the 429 took off. I've had a lot of pickup trucks and a lot of other cars, but those are some of the older muscle cars that I've had over the years. And so, yeah. And I got in a lot of trouble in my late teens for vehicle-related incidents. A lot of trouble. I lost my driver's license for a few years. No DUI or anything. Really stupid choices as a teenager. And because I had that need for speed. I had a total lead foot and bad judgment. And paid pretty heavily for that. Luckily, nobody got hurt or killed because of my stupidity. And I added the extra syllable there intentionally, just to emphasize it. But yeah, and now I have a great driving record. My insurance is low. I keep my foot out of it most of the time. I really, sometimes I really struggle with that. I really, oh my goodness, some days. I got in a motorcycle and stuff, and so, but I've toned it down in my old age. So yeah, just a little bit of a gearhead. How about yourself?
Not much at all.
Okay.
But I'm fascinated by how things work, how they're supposed to.
Cool.
Sort of that thing of trying to make it so that it doesn't seem like magic to me anymore.
Right. You ever watch Wallace? You ever watch Wallace and Gromit?
Oh yes. The wrong trousers.
Yes. Well. Yeah, they got a whole series, and he's that mad inventor with all that stuff. Yeah, I used to be that way as a kid. I was the mad inventor. My poor mom. I'm so lucky I didn't blow up the house. But yeah, it's fun playing with all those mechanical things. Did you ever play with Legos or anything like that when you were growing up?
Oh, sure. And mostly, I never did quite a lot of technical Lego things with working mechanisms. I mostly designed things, make cool spaceship designs and everything.
Great.
But, yeah.
That's really good for development. A lot of kids don't get that anymore because parents get them tablets and video games instead. And there's some advantage to doing some of that, but they're missing a lot in this 3D world of manipulating objects and putting them together. There's a lot of research on that.
I'm a fan of Legos, but in terms of the technical stuff, actually, in my first job, we had I was working at a children's museum, and we had a rotating exhibit, and one of them was Connects.
Cool.
And Connects I felt was better because it's more basic parts that once you start getting it together...
There are a lot of other...
really do a lot.
Lincoln Logs, blocks, cardboard boxes, whatever. Get them interacting with the physical world. There's really good developmental stuff that happens there with creativity, problem solving, and we talked about different senses and kinesthetic senses and such, and just understand neural mapping of the world. They miss out a lot when they're just on a flat screen. Yeah. There's some benefits to a limited amount of that, but then you need to interact with the real world more, and that's been getting lost, unfortunately. Parents who are overworked and tired and stressed will plop their kid down in front of the TV / computer / console / little game console or tablet at really young ages now. And it isn't all bad development. There's some advantages to it, but they are missing out. Our brains are just wired that, to keep what we do. And if you're not doing other activities, it's that much harder to learn those things later.
Yeah.
I'm a big advocate for technology, but everything in moderation, including moderation itself.
Yes. Royalties on that one.
No, you were long beat on that one. Sorry.
Yeah, but I'm patenting it.
Well, we'll have to talk when you do that. Is that going to be a design patent or a utility patent?
Yes.
Yeah. If you want to hear more about patents, trademarks, so design, utility patents, trademarks, and copyright and service marks. This past Thursday's RPG Talk Show, I went into a fair amount of that because as CTO and CIO, I'm not a lawyer, but as CTO and CIO for a number of technology companies, I had to learn a lot of legalese and understand the legal ramifications of a lot of the inventions that we were involved with. And digital rights management. Oh my goodness, because we work with Barnes & Noble and Amazon and IBM and all of them and all the DRM crap. Oh, so I had to learn a lot of that and legalese and contract negotiations. And so you had to really understand the difference between trademark, service mark, copyright, patent, whether it's design patent, what's a utility patent, what you can and can't do. The whole Amazon one-click thing, happened early on. That screwed everybody because they won. They got it. And it was a high-level design, not utility. It's like, all it was one click. It didn't say how you did the one click, just that you could purchase with one click. Amazon won that patent. So Barnes & Noble Rails had to add an extra step to their shopping cart artificially to not be in violation because Amazon wanted outrageous licensing.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. That's the two-edged sword of these things. So, all right, well, we're over now. So where you may be well. Happy gaming. Namarie. I'll be back in a little less than an hour here. For the Tolkien Society. You can check out more at tolkienscholars.org for that. For this, it's rpgresearch.com. We'll be back again tomorrow, Heroes of the Mist, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific Time, to continue the Audience Interactive Advanced Dungeons & Dragons First Edition tabletop role-playing game that's been running since this summer. And James has stepped down. He's got life issues that he's not able to continue the artwork, so I got to find yet another artist.
Yeah.
This is for real-time sketch. But the audience can affect the gameplay, so check that out on Sundays. And then we'll be back talking more RPG theory on Monday, 6 to 9. Wherever you be well. Happy gaming. Namarie.
Have a good night. Or good day. Wherever you are.
Be well.